to our regular city council meeting for November 7th. We'll turn it over to Mr. Jansen for the invocation, followed by the salute to the flag. Please rise.
Let us pray. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we just thank you for all your blessings, Lord. We just ask you to overlook this community, as we've lost a lot of community citizens that have passed away in the past couple of weeks that are instrumental and a big part of our community. Lord, be with their families, give them peace. Lord, give us the strength to move the city forward in a direction that would be favorable for you. And Lord, most of all, we just thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, for it's in his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is called to order. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Dumont.
Here.
Councilmember Golden. Here. Councilmember Jansen.
Here.
Councilmember Meza.
Here.
Councilmember Nichols.
Here.
Councilmember Stokes. Here. Mayor Hoffman.
Here. Moving on to approval of minutes, item A.
I move that we approve the minutes from the closed executive session held on October 17th, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion by council? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item B.
Move that we approve the minutes of the regular council meeting held on October 17th, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion by council? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item C.
I move that we approve the minutes of the special council meeting held on November 2nd, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item D.
I move we approve the minutes of the council briefing held on November 2nd, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion by council? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Council announcements. Mr. Mesa.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to give another kudos to our police department. They keep taking guns from the streets from criminals who shouldn't have them. So I really want to thank them. And also, message to any criminal that wants to come to Jax Beach and vandalize private property. Don't worry, police department will catch you. You will go to jail. We don't have any time. This is not the place for it. So, if you see the police department out there, please give them a big round of applause, shake their hands. I was about it. So first of all,
Ms. Golding.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick announcement for those of you in the audience. If you're not aware, the city has started the process of updating our comprehensive plan and our land development code, which is a very, very important piece of making sure that our community grows in the way that we want it to. And we've had several workshops. We just recently had a workshop with the business owners, and there was a citizens workshop several weeks ago. But if you were not able to attend, I encourage you to go to the website cojbupdate.com. And there are just a few questions there on that website. They're the same questions that were asked in the workshop, but that's your opportunity to provide input into this process, and I really encourage our citizens to participate with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Golding. I have a couple. I just want to give a Parks and Rec kudos. I've recently rejoined Paws Park. I didn't join, my dog joined, and she loves it. It's beautiful, the turf is great, and it's really well utilized, but not too crazy busy. The same, later that day, I went over to Penman Park for the farmers market that we have every Saturday morning. If you haven't been out there, I highly recommend it. It's really easy to get in and out of, and they have a lot of great vendors there, especially now as the weather's getting a little more bearable. I encourage you to take advantage of that. We have a couple things coming up this week, not the least of which is subtropical storm Nicole. If this name is a surprise to you, I encourage you just to check out the weather pages. Jack's Ready is a wonderful app and website that I encourage you guys all to follow. That's really the best source. That's the source that we all share, that the city shares as far as up-to-date local information. So please keep an eye on this. It's going to affect a lot of the state. And then, of course, Election Day is tomorrow. A lot of you, I would imagine, have probably already voted, so hopefully we can get to a point someday where early voting is just voting and Election Day is late voting. But I encourage you not to show up at the polls without having checked your sample ballot, because you will see 16 amendments on it. I'm not going to give you my thoughts on those amendments right now, but you can always contact me or come up to any of us after the meeting if you have any questions. Those came from an extensive 9-month charter review that this council was a part of. So we put a lot of work into that, and hopefully you will consider those items. I think that's it for me. Mr. Stokes, would you like to make some comments?
Yeah, bear with me as I read this. But Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, today is a sad day for me. Although I have submitted my application for appointment back to this body next week, effective tonight at midnight, I will no longer be the current City Council member for Seat 3 at large. To reflect back over the past 2 years, I'm incredibly grateful to the citizens of Jack's Beach for allowing me the opportunity to represent you. I'm thankful for this incredible group on the dais that has come together in service of our great city. I'm thankful for our city staff that has always been available to answer questions, provide input, and give us the information needed to do our jobs effectively. Though I won't go through everyone for fear of missing someone, you've all been incredibly helpful, and I'm honored to have worked for you all. Jacksonville Beach is truly an amazing place. We are a beautifully diverse city, blessed by nature all around. I loved growing up here, love living here, and I love raising my family here. As I look towards the future, I know it will be different, as it was different when I was a young kid living here, but the charm of this part of Northeast Florida will never be lost. I want to thank the people of Jacksonville Beach again for your trust in me 2 years ago. It's been one of the greatest honors of my life serving you. Inspired me to give more of my time serving you, working to solve issues large and small. Although not all opportunities worked out as I had hoped, I know there's a reason for that. And I will always continue to work on improving Jacksonville Beach, as I believe it is filled with unlimited potential, and I'm honored to have been a part of it. Thank you to everyone who has been a part of this journey. I am truly grateful for you all. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes. Regardless of how things go next week with appointing a replacement to his vacant position, I've asked Mr. Stokes to come back on the 21st, which is when we will be seating the new council members and giving our farewell to the outgoing council members. So we'll do this again a little bit more. I think it's the 21st. Okay, good, thank you. My fact checkers up here. So we look forward to the hail and farewell that we'll have at that time. Courtesy of the floor to visitors, and then we will get to our proclamation. We have one card, Mr. Curtis Loftus. Come on, let me guess what you're talking about. Just say your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hello. Curtis Loftus, 1280 Mayport Landing Drive, Atlantic Beach. No address since the last time I saw you guys. Bit of a gypsy. But, so good to see you. Thanks for, once again, I'm here to talk about Deck the Chairs. And, 10th season. Pretty wild to think back and imagine wrapping up Deck the Chairs in 2013. And it was 18 chairs maybe, and I think it took maybe 8 hours to get it cleaned up. And now I end up, our group, our volunteers, will be in the park right after Supergirl. Great event. We formed a good relationship with those folks. And so we'll transition into the park. November 17th will be the date, and we'll spend week installing Deck the Chairs, and it's going to be bigger than ever. We've got some incredible partnerships this year. Every year more partners, every year more volunteers, every year more stuff on the stage. Just really proud to be able to stand with you and showcase our city. We've gotten national recognition, international attention. I can't tell you how many great, wonderful comments from across the region, across the country. And yeah, we showcase this beautiful city, and it is a beautiful city. We have great staff, and I want to commend Parks and Rec, Jason Fatides and Molly. I've worked with them. Jason especially for the last 9 years, working through the city managers and ideas and what can this become and how's it going to look. A free event in that downtown public park space is really hard to pull off at the scope, scale that we do every year. And it really is the volunteers, it's the community. The citizens love Deck the Chairs, and you guys know that. And it's just a great honor to once again do it on your behalf. And that's it. Look forward to seeing everyone this year. Thanks.
Thank you, Curtis. All right, that was the only courtesy of the floor, so we'll move on to, we have one proclamation, and what I'm going to do is read the proclamation, and then maybe we can all get up and do a photo op, because I know there's a lot of members of this organization here, well represented, so I'll go ahead and read it from here. So, whereas Beaches Fine Arts Series, Inc. is a nonprofit organization that has been presenting world-class performers, including chamber orchestras, quartets and trios, jazz musicians, and internationally acclaimed vocal groups free to music lovers from all walks of life in Northeast Florida for 50 years, free of charge. I'm glad we said that twice because it's important. And whereas a board of trustees comprised of community volunteers runs BFAS, and the board actively works together to better the organization and enhance the lives of Northeast Florida's residents. And whereas Beaches Fine Arts Series works closely with the Duval County Public Schools to bring guest artists to area schools, serving thousands of students from elementary school through college with targeted age-appropriate educational outreach programs. And whereas Beaches Fine Arts Series targets Title I schools for its programs and provides free bus funds for transportation to its venues for all Duval County Public Schools. And whereas Beaches Fine Arts Series also provides guest artists to after-school programs for disadvantaged youth. And whereas for 50 years, Beaches Fine Arts Series has fulfilled its mission to enrich our communities by sharing the transforming power of music and art free to all. Now, therefore, I, Christine H. Hoffman, Mayor of the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby recognize and congratulate Beaches Fine Arts Series on its 50th anniversary. Been to a Beaches Fine Arts Series concert, and maybe you haven't even heard of Beaches Fine Arts Series. I hope that's not the case. Please look them up. If you haven't heard, their concerts are free, and they're wonderful. They're held at St. Paul's. Most of them are held at St. Paul's by the Sea right here in Jacksonville Beach, and they really do a wonderful job bringing in just amazing international artists. So the fact that you can get to hear these talented artists for free is really a special thing here in our community. And I want to say before we do our photo op that not only is it the Beaches Fine Arts Series 50th anniversary, it's Kathy Wallace's 25th year. Starting in 1997. She began as a volunteer for the series starting in 1976 when she joined St. Paul's by the Sea Church Choir. So a total of 46 years serving this organization. And I'm sorry, I don't know who did that math, it wasn't me, but I apologize. So not only is she a talented executive director, but she's a talented singer as well. And I will say personal friend and colleague here in the Beaches cultural community. So we're lucky to have you, I'm lucky to have you, as well as all of your staff, your other two staff, and your amazing board of directors and volunteers. So thank you guys all for what you do and bring free music to the beaches.
All right, we're going to fill up the room.
That's okay.
You're going to come up in front of the dais? Let's come up here.
Yeah, we'll come up here.
I also have schedule.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
I'll take one of those.
I almost said if I know Kathy, she's got a stack of programs.
Wow.
Who's gonna take that? Out of
Something useful.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. And now
See you. Oh, no. Oh, yeah.
y'all come to concerts.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
Or they try to join the city council band. Okay, on to our regular items. Item A, seems like an Ashley item. Ms. Gossett.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Ashley Gossett, CFO. The item before you tonight is an amendment with to our agreement with Tyler Technologies to implement the Tyler payment processor and purchase credit card terminals. As you all are aware, we've been working on our utility billing implementation project, and a component of that is selecting a payment processor. Tyler integrates with a few payment processors, so the steering committee evaluated each of them based on convenience for the customer, ease of reconciliation, and cost. And ultimately, the committee recommends that we select Tyler Payments as our payment processor, and this will allow us to take credit cards in person at the front counter of the drive-thru, online, and via the phone. The cost to purchase the credit card readers is $3,300, or $3,352, and it's $1,440 for annual maintenance. And as a part of this agreement, Tyler will assess a convenience fee to those that pay via credit card, and it will be 2.75% of the transaction or $1.50, whichever is greater. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about it.
Thank you, Ms. Gossett. A motion?
I move that we approve the amendment to the agreement with Tyler Technologies to implement the Tyler payment processor and then purchase 8 credit card terminals.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Dumont.
Thank you. After you and your team for finally getting this done, before I was on council, I volunteered with the police department, and when people came in to pay for a report or anything else, it was cash check or money order, even when it was 15 cents for the report that they needed. So thank you very much. I thank you for me and for all the residents. Anybody who tries to do business with the city, they can now use their credit card. Thank you.
We're moving right along, this technology thing. Any other comments or questions from council? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Dumont?
Yes.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries. Item B, Ms. Nelson.
Good evening. Karen Nelson, Deputy City Manager. Items B and C, we are asking council to approve the collective bargaining agreements with FOP, our Police Officers Union, and LIUNA, our General Employees Union. And then later on the agenda, under resolutions, we have an item D, asking you to adopt a resolution for the non-union position classification and pay plan. Each one of these items is presented separately, and each one has its own summary table of all of the changes, along with a financial impact for each one of these items. But because between the three of these, we are asking you all to approve changes to every position and every pay grade throughout the city, we wanted to present you with a summary table so you could see the overall financial impact citywide. So this is just a summary of the tables that you'll see at each of these three items. For all positions citywide, we are looking at a total increase in annual cost in fiscal year 2023 of $2,874,218. For a total annual payroll cost of the $37,238,000 that you see. What was budgeted in this year's adopted budget was $35,796,854. So there's a variance of $1.4 million or 4%. We are not recommending a budget adjustment at this time. We do budget for full employment throughout the year, 100% employment, and we budget for additional overtime and some other contingencies. So throughout the year, we'll monitor, and then we'll come back at year end and recommend budget adjustments where necessary for some departments and divisions. So with that, the first item is the FOP collective bargaining agreement. And again, you've all been provided with a summary of all the substantive changes. I'm here as well as the CFO to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Can we get a motion for item B?
I move that we approve the collective bargaining agreement with the Fraternal Order of Police for a 3-year term effective October 1st, 2022.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Dumont.
Thank you. For those who looked at those numbers and thought, wow, that's a lot of money. Yes, it is, and this is a lot of money that our team has worked very hard to make sure that we stay a competitive employer so we can attract and retain the best people that we can. And those numbers would be much higher if we had to keep paying for new trainings and new advertising for positions because they keep emptying because we're not competitive. So while it looked like it was a lot, it is a lot, but it is what is needed in order to have a fully functioning and great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dumont. Any other questions or comments? And in addition, just so you know, we've had multiple meetings to discuss this, so this is not news to us if it seems like we're not discussing it at great length. Seeing no others, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Dumont?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries. Anything to add for item C?
No, only to say that I do want to say thank you to both of the unions, union representatives that we've worked so hard with over the past few months to reach an agreement. So it's a team effort, and both city staff and union representatives really put forth a lot of effort to come to a good agreement.
Great, thank you. And a motion?
I move that we approve the collective bargaining agreement with the Laborers International Union of North America for a 3-year term effective October 1st, 2022.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussions or questions from council? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Dumont?
Yes.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries. Item D?
Item D is proposing 2 amendments, one to the employment agreement between the city and the city manager, and one between the employment agreement between the city and the city attorney. Council gave us some direction on everything on October 10th to bring forward a proposed amendment to their labor agreements, which will allow for the city manager and the city attorney to receive any across-the-board adjustments or market adjustments that the city provides to all other employees, specifically to executive management. So this sets forth provision for the city manager and the city attorney to receive those types of across-the-board adjustments at the same time and in the same percentage as executive management. It has no impact on the provisions for merit increases. This is not a merit-based adjustment.
Thank you. And a motion?
I move that we approve the first amendments to the employment agreements for the city manager and city attorney providing for salary adjustments.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from council? Mr. Jansen?
Just a quick comment. Thank you, Karen, for all your hard work and avoiding impasse on the 2 previous issues, and that we got them resolved in a quick fashion and be able to move forward. Thank you.
Anybody else? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Meza,
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols,
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes,
Yes.
Councilmember Dumont,
Yes.
Councilmember Golding,
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen,
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman.
Yes, motion carries. Item E, Miss Ireland.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Heather Ireland, Planning and Development Director. What we are requesting from you today is kind of a two-parter, so bear with me. In our continued efforts to encourage economic development in our downtown area, and kind of piggybacking on the J-bill that was recently supported by council, we are requesting that council direct staff to begin developing an ordinance that would put in place basically what we're calling the outdoor dining pilot program that would allow outdoor dining in the downtown area only on specific corridors, on public sidewalks, in what we're called in the J-bill language, the Downtown Investment Zone, or DIZ as we're referring to it as. So I believe we have a map, Madam Clerk, if you don't mind. There we go. So the area that we would like to focus on initially is the First Avenue North, which is part of the civic corridor identified in the Downtown Action Plan, specifically the north side of the road. And we do have some interest from the property owner that owns, thank you, the building that's currently under construction just across the street from City Council. So our request, again, is 2 parts. One, authorizing the city manager to approve a right-of-way permit so the developer of that project can eliminate those parking spaces and replace it with some type of pavers or solid surface so that when we are ready with that outdoor dining pilot program, they can proceed accordingly. So again, we are focusing right now only on this First Avenue North corridor in the downtown. Depending on how it goes and if council is happy with the progress of that program, we can revisit it and see if it wants to be expanded and to what streets and so forth. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. And a motion?
I move that we approve staff to proceed with developing an ordinance to establish an outdoor dining pilot program on First Avenue North from First Street North to Second Street North.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Dumont?
Thank you. Just for clarity, when you're looking at that, if people think about downtown, they think about bars. This pilot program is specifically for restaurants only. Bars are not going to have outdoor seating on the sidewalks. It is only for restaurants. So just in case that crossed anybody's mind. Thank you.
Mr. Mesa?
I had a question. How long is the pilot program for?
In initial internal discussions, we've been thrown around 2 years, but again, if it could be shortened or lengthened depending on how it's proceeding and council's desire.
If we do 2 years and let's say the pilot program is not working, are we able to terminate it before those 2 years are up?
Yeah, I believe so, we could, yes.
I'm excited. Thank you.
Ms. Golding?
Heather, I didn't see anything in the memo, but was this discussed at all with our CRA?
Yes, the CRA has discussed this, and in fact, we discussed it at the last meeting, and they have a formal resolution on their agenda for next Monday to formally support it. But we did already discuss it with them.
And the feeling is that they are supportive of this?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Stokes?
Yeah, since it's right now in restaurant only form, if a coffee shop were interested, like in getting outdoor dining or outdoor seating, would they fall under that use?
The way we're envisioning it, yes, a coffee shop would be considered a restaurant.
Okay, good.
Anybody else? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Nichols,
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes,
Yes.
Councilmember Dumont,
Yes.
Councilmember Golding,
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen,
Yes.
Councilmember Meza,
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman.
Yes, motion carries. And then item 2, under
I
that?
move that we approve the city manager to execute a right-of-way use permit for Jacksonville Beach Town Center LLC to eliminate on-street parking spaces adjacent to and south of the Town Center project, replacing in kind with an oversized sidewalk and prohibiting the use for outdoor dining until a pilot program is established.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Dumont?
Yes.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries. Any update on the resolution A? Staff report? No, good. Madam Clerk, will you read the resolution by title?
A resolution of the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, establishing a convenience fee for credit card, charge card, and debit card utility payments, and providing for an effective date.
And a motion?
I move that we adopt resolution number 2113, 2022, establishing a convenience fee for credit card, charge card, and debit card utility payments and providing for an effective date.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Dumont?
Yes.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries. Item B, do we have a staff report for budget? Oh, I was looking at the wrong side.
AJ Soto, Budget Officer. You have before you the year-end budget mod for the fiscal year, which just ended on September 30, 2022. It summarizes all of the actions approved by council from April through the September period, which is why it's 7 pages long. There's a lot that happened in the last 6 months of FY22. At the face of the memo itself, Finance specifically calls out those items which council has not acted on previously, and so they get called to the face of the memo, which is why you'll see that special chart on page 1, and then on the resolution itself, it goes through all the various line items that are going to be impacted by this. So I'm happy to answer any questions council might have at this time.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you read the resolution by title?
A resolution amending the operating budget of the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2021 and ending September 30th, 2022.
And a motion?
I move that we adopt resolution number 2122, 2022, amending the operating budget of the City of Jacksonville Beach for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2021 and ending September 30th, 2022.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion by council? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Dumont?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries. Item C, Molly.
Molly Alliger, Parks and Recreation. I'm here tonight to request approval for another resolution for 3 more honorary street signs. Our honorees are Private First Class Dwayne Corbett, Private First Class Harold Owens, and Sergeant First Class Gerard Reed. Parks has verified residency and military status, and Public Works has given their blessing on the locations.
Thank you. Before we read the resolution, we have one speaker card on this. And we're not surprised. Mr. Lenny Jevitt, come on up.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, City Manager. Thanks so much for your support in the past and continued support of this program. I'm Lenny Jevitt, a Beaches Veterans Memorial Park historian. Tonight I'm proud to submit these nominations. Private First Class Dwayne Corbett, Private First Class Harold Owens. They both died within 3 days of each other in 1968. Another one that was submitted last time was William Raymond Gass, Private First Class. He died within 10 days of these two dying in 1968. The Jacksonville Beach lost 3 soldiers, 3 citizens within 10 days in 1968 during the Vietnam War. The third nominee is Sergeant Gerard Mantino Reed, 23-year Army veteran. He was awarded 7 Army Commendation Medals, 9 Army Achievement Medals, and did 3 tours in Iraq. These are all heroes. The sponsors for these signs, I have Sherry Saucerman, another member from the Gene Rubal chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. They're sponsoring Harold Owens and Gerard Reed's signs, and I'm proud to say that Sonati's Bakery is supporting and sponsoring Private First Class Dwayne Corbett's sign. Just encourage support, and thank you so much for all that you do for the veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jevick. Madam Clerk, will you read the resolution by title?
A resolution of the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, approving applications and honorary street name designation sign locations for fallen wartime military veterans under the honorary street sign designation policy, authorizing sign installation, providing for adoption of recitals, repeal of prior inconsistent resolutions and council decisions, severability, and an effective date.
Thank you, and a motion.
I move that we adopt resolution number 2125, 2022, approving the honorary street name designation applications for honorees Corbett, Owens, and Reed.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Dumont.
Thank you. I did read online that one of the past signs has been stolen. Do we have a policy on how we replace them?
It wasn't stolen, it was blown away during Hurricane Ian. The entire coast was taken, and we didn't recover it. So Mr. Jevick was kind enough to get that replaced, and that will be going up with these signs.
Okay, great, thank you. And then finally, this Friday is Veterans Day, so please join, Lonnie will be there, for the memorial up at Atlantic Beach Veterans Memorial Park, and I believe 9 a.m.?
Yes.
9 a.m. To honor those who have served and lost their lives. Thank you.
And I just want to add, the Beaches Museum is looking at taking the stories as they've been compiled by Mr. Jevick and Mr. Woodhouse and adding them to an online history tour that we're working on. So we really appreciate, and we'll talk to you about that, but we really appreciate all the work that's gone into compiling these stories that would otherwise really only be known to the families. So thank you for that. Ms. Golden.
Can I just jump in real quick? Not only lost their lives, but all veterans, but we were just talking about those. So all veterans are being honored on Friday.
Thank you for the clarification, Ms. Dumont. Ms. Golden.
Just a quick thank you to Mr. Jevick. As always, thank you for all that you do to honor the memory of these heroes. We are certainly very appreciative, and it's an honor for us to be able to do this in our community.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Dumont?
Yes.
Councilmember Golden?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries. Item D. Are you staying for that? Thank you, Ms. Nelson.
Item D is the first resolution is to adopt the changes to the non-union position classification and pay plan, consistent with the increases that we made for those union groups. And then I have no additional information, but I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you read the resolution by title?
A resolution of the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, amending its position classification and pay plan for managerial, professional, and administrative non-union positions, providing for adoption of recitals, adoption of the plan, repeal of prior inconsistent resolutions, severability, and an effective date.
And a motion.
I move that we adopt resolution 2123, 2022, amending the position classification and pay plan for managerial, professional, and administrative non-union positions effective October 1st, 2022.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Dumont.
Thank you. Karen, I want to thank you and your team This is very difficult to do, to fight inversion and compression with the salaries of new people coming in and the raises of people who are already in the organization not raising. And I know you have a consultant that helps with this, and I don't know what kind of magic he or she or they do to this, but it's, I'm impressed with how equitable your team has been able to get the salaries within the organization to also be competitive with other organizations of similar jobs. So thank you very much. This is an extremely difficult thing at which anyone who works in a public or private organization, especially unionized, knows is very difficult to do. Thank you.
Is this your last official meeting?
No, we have another one next week.
Oh, that's right. She's getting all her comments in. Any other comments from council? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Dumont?
Yes.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries. Item E.
The next resolution is for the non-union personnel policies to make some amendments to the leave policy specifically, to add Juneteenth as a holiday, which council has already adopted by resolution. Also, we are eliminating the personal leave day, but instead rolling that into an additional vacation day and allowing for more flexibility and a little bit of accelerated accrual rate. And also providing our employees with a vacation sellback program. This is also consistent with the changes that we've already adopted in both union contracts. So this will allow all employees citywide to enjoy the same vacation benefits. This resolution also provides administrative authority to the city manager to make changes to the personnel policies in the future, revisions or additions. That authority does not extend to position classification and pay plan or to the union contract, so it will still be brought before council for revisions. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Will you read the ordinance by title?
A resolution of the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, amending its personnel policies, providing for adoption of recitals, adoption of the plan, repeal of prior inconsistent resolutions, severability, and an effective date.
And a motion.
I move that we adopt Resolution 2126, 2022, amending city personnel policies.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions from City Council? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Dumont?
Yes.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to ordinances. And I'd like to know who planned this long agenda of the day after the time change, because it's like midnight outside right now. Moving on to the ordinances, starting with item A, do we need a staff update?
We don't need a staff update on either one of these. I am available though if council has any questions.
Okay, Madam Clerk, will you read the ordinance by title?
An ordinance of the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 5, General Employees Retirement System of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Jacksonville Beach to provide for an increase to the benefit cap, providing for severability and an effective date.
Thank you. This ordinance is before the council for a public hearing and consideration on its second reading. I will now open the public hearing on ordinance number 2022-8184. Would anyone like to speak in favor of the ordinance? I do not have any cards on this issue. Would anyone like to speak in opposition to this ordinance? Would anyone like to speak for or against the ordinance? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. A motion, please.
I move that we adopt ordinance 2022-8184 on the second reading, amending the city code of ordinance, Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 5, General Employees Retirement System.
Second. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Dumont?
Yes.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries. Madam Clerk, will you please read the next ordinance by title?
An ordinance of the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 6, Police Officers Retirement System of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Jacksonville Beach to provide for an increase to the annual benefit cap and to amend the term of office for member-elected trustees, providing for severability and an effective date.
Thank you. This ordinance is before the council for a public hearing and consideration on its second reading. I will now open the public hearing on ordinance number 2022-8185. We'll start with those who would like to speak in favor of the ordinance, those who would like to speak in opposition to the ordinance, anyone who wishes to speak for or against the ordinance. This public hearing is closed, and motion.
I move that we adopt ordinance number 2022-8185 on the second reading, amending the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 6, Police Officers Retirement System.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Dumont.
Thank you. One person who served on the Police Officers Retirement Board for years was John Gallardo, and he recently passed. He was a very valued member of the community, of the police department, and he will be sorely missed. He was a wonderful individual.
Thank you, Ms. Dumont. Anybody else? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Dumont?
Yes.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to ordinance C. Do you want to give a staff update or?
Thank you, Mayor Hoffman. Heather Ireland, Planning and Development Director. I don't have anything to add or update. There's been no changes to the request on the small scale land use amendment, but I have all of the slides from the presentation if I need to refer to any, to answer questions or any additional clarification that's needed for the application.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Will you read the ordinance by title?
An ordinance of the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, amending the 2030 Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map, providing for a change of future land use designations on approximately 30.33 acres of land located south of Beach Boulevard between Hobson Road and Jardin de Mire Place, from Community Commercial CC to High Density Residential HDR, Conservation CON, and Recreation Open Space ROS, from Recreation Open Space ROS to High Density Residential HDR, from High Density Residential HDR to Recreation Open Space ROS, and from Low Density Residential to Conservation, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This ordinance for the amendment to the text of the 2030 Comprehensive Plan is before the council for a public hearing and adoption on its second reading. Under the laws of the state of Florida, an ordinance which changes the text of any element of the city's 2030 Comprehensive Plan is a quasi-legislative proceeding. A quasi-legislative proceeding means that a governing body is acting in its rule-making capacity. It is the duty of the council to arrive at sound decisions regarding proposed changes to the text of the adopted 2030 Comprehensive Plan. This includes receiving citizen input regarding any proposed text change. The application has been reviewed by staff and the Planning Commission for consistency with other portions of the Comprehensive Plan. The council may hear from all interested parties in the legislative determination of an amendment to the text of the city's 2030 Comprehensive Plan. The council's decision on the Comprehensive Plan amendment application is based on the criteria set forth in Section 34-182 of the Land Development Code. Each member of the council has been provided with a copy of the criteria. I will now open the public hearing on ordinance number 2022-8181. We already got an update from the planning department, and the first speaker card in support is already at the podium, Mr. Steve Devonow.
Thank you, Mayor. Steve Devonow, 1 Independent Drive, Suite 1200. Here on behalf of the applicant. I don't have anything to add either, but I'm available For questions regarding this one, nothing has changed since the last time we met regarding the small-scale land use amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. The next card we have is Barbara Bauer. If you'd like to come up and address. I'm sorry, in opposite, yes, sorry. We're moving on to the speakers in opposition of the ordinance. Your name and address, so 3 minutes to address.
My name is Barbara Bauer, 604 13th Avenue South. I am speaking in opposition to both the land use amendment and the zoning request. Our population in 2020 was 24,324 people, which already exceeded the 2030 projection of 23,998. According to the U.S. Census, the average increase in population for Jax Beach is 240 to 250 people per year. This project alone will add over 800 people. That's basically 3 years worth of growth in one development. Without the land use amendment, 300 to 320 apartment units, plus commercial space is already allowed, plus another 100 single homes in the back section. The developer's position is he can't make profit building only 320. Well, since when is it the job of City Council to ensure a housing development or a retail development makes a profit? This is not a sufficient reason to grant the land use amendment. I went to the county's appraisals website and did some calculations. I took the taxes on a property which sold for $21 million. They built 170 upscale apartment units. The portion of the taxes paid to the beaches on this property is roughly $211,000. I extrapolated from that figure what taxes on 427 units would be, which is roughly $530,000. And that figure is high since the Venture Landing property was purchased for only $8 million. Using these same figure taxes on 320 units, the number currently allowed, taxes would be roughly $396,000. The average cost of a home in Jax Beach is around $600,000. The beach portion's taxes on that is roughly $3,200. If 100 homes were built on the land, which is already allowed, that would be taxes to the beaches of roughly $320,000. Add that to the roughly $400,000 for the apartment units, which would already be allowed, that would be over $720,000 in potential new property taxes to Jax Beach, as opposed to the possible $530,000 for the 427 units for the developer wants. So we're losing money basically on this deal anyway. I would like to address the workforce housing units. Specifically mentions in the policy that for low to moderate income, the 28 units set aside for the workforce does not address this at all. According to HUD, workforce housing refers to people making above 60% of the median income. In Jax Beach, that is over $96,000, which means people making $57,977 or less will not be eligible for these apartments. According to Data USA's website, 39% of Jax Beach workforce makes under 60% of the median income. These are the people in retail, food service, office and admin, personal care, and related occupations, none of which will qualify for these units, nor will they be able to afford them. And finally, I just have a question, because I know I've run out of time. When you ran for election, you told us what your vision of our city was going to be. We voted for you based on that information. You represent us, the voters and the workers. Do you think if you ran on a platform of supporting massive development and tripling our population, any of you would be sitting up there right now? When you vote to approve these changes, you're actually betraying the people that voted you in office. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer. Lynn Highland.
Good evening, my name is Lynn Heilman. I live at 22 Hobson Road. I was unable to make it to the last city council meeting because I was actually in Washington, D.C. at a funeral for a veteran, a fraternity brother of mine who was fallen. I do appreciate what the city's doing for our veterans. I was, however, at the Planning Commission meeting. The Planning Commission is an arm of the City Council, they denied this proposal. During that meeting, the developer guided the attorneys, the developer's attorney guided how that should be written. And it was denied. I don't know if any of you watched the Planning Commission, but they are the voice of the people. They, the Planning Commission projects that are denied are not typically approved. Why you all are approving this makes no sense. We asked the developer to get a traffic study. It's my understanding that the traffic study failed on Penman Road. There was a meeting last week in road expansion. It's not going to accommodate it until after that is done. If these two things are going on simultaneously, it should be, you should wait until the traffic can handle it if you're going to improve it. Sandy is up here speaking about the comprehensive plan review. She was part of the Height Study Committee and Beaches Watch, which denied development of high-rise buildings, which is another product of density. This project at 427 units, average 850 square feet, are not going to attract families to the beaches. A family's not going to live in a two-bedroom apartment. Again, and then I came back, I read the beaches later that said basically that it was approved, not noting that there was a second meeting for this, and that one of the council members said that, as that's kind of hits in both ways in their pocketbook. As a single family builder, anytime I go for a variance for a side yard, a front yard, lot coverage, financial hardship is strictly denied. Why is it okay for city council to say, well, we can't cut it back just on the fact that we're getting in the developer's pocketbook here? It's a double standard here. This is not a good thing for the beach. It needs to be reconsidered in coherent or in consistency with what Sandy said about the land development code update. This is a multifamily development, and you said you have to make sound decisions. How is this a sound decision? I haven't heard anybody speak for this, how this is a sound decision for the city of Jacks Beach. I really, really think this is a bad thing. I don't know why the developer has even gotten this far with this, and why all of you don't understand how that is going to be a negative impact to our beaches. I request that you deny the second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Heilman. Mr. Lewis.
My name is Duke Lewis, and I live at 18 Hobson Road. I am against this project. Like Mr. Howland, I did attend the Planning Commission meeting, and I noted one thing in there. All of the people on the planning board, all they were asking for was more information. They were trying to do their due diligence and ask, is this the right project for the beaches? I'll say it in this meeting as I said it in that one. This does not benefit any citizen of the beach. It benefits a developer. This property was purchased on a bankruptcy thing. It's almost as though he purchased a lotto ticket, and he's asking you to scratch it off and make it the big winner. All right, he bought property that was zoned a particular way. Leave the zoning as it is. I believe in property rights, okay? Let him do with this property as it is properly zoned right now. Do not scratch this lotto ticket off and allow him to put something this dense at the entrance to our city. I noted in the Planning Commission meeting there was a lot of discussion about getting a Welcome to Jacks Beach sign. Well, we're going to welcome him to Jacks Beach because we're going to look exactly like all of the apartments out by the town center or any other major road. This will also set a precedent that I'm scared about. I believe the marina is going to come to you next and try and mimic some of these same numbers. Just imagine how dense it will be. But back to that Planning Commission meeting. I noted at the meeting they were saying, hey, maybe we could use some more time. Maybe we could look into traffic some more. And they asked the developer to come forward with a traffic study. And I noticed time was a big deal to him. He didn't want it to take too long. And I know this particular project has been talked about for years. So why we're at a rush now? Why we talked about it, it went silent for a number of months, and then it was pushed in. I don't understand why we're moving so quickly, and I don't understand why this council isn't lockstep with its planning commission. I wanted to ask myself, and I don't have the opportunity to get these statistics, but how many times has the council voted directly against the planning commission? Is this an anomaly? Is this something we do all the time? Why is the planning commission there if we don't rely on their due diligence? But again, why the rush? one of the things that was just said is, as the quasi-judicial, and I apologize, you were reading it, I don't know it off the top of my head, but it said sound decision, and I don't believe we're making a sound decision if you move forward with this project. This is no small-scale project, although the words are in the thing. The last thing I would say is I wondered why time was so important. I wondered why, at the Planning Commission, the developer wanted to push so hard to have this read tonight, have this pushed through tonight. And I think earlier when the announcements were made that when the clock strikes midnight, this council is a different council. And I believe that's what they were racing for. I wholeheartedly ask you to deny this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Ms. Tipton.
Good evening. I think it's rather apropos that in a couple of hours we're on election day. And we have a time in which so many people are so frustrated with their elected officials. And the Jacksonville Beach, I think, very, very much is showing that the city council has abandoned the vision of the beach's residents. Abandoned their vision. I spoke with somebody over the weekend, I don't know if she's here, her name's Paula Conroy, and last year she came before you when this was first coming with 2,000 signatures of people not wanting this to go through. She spoke to you all, and her response was she had a response of zombie looks, no response, no action, so what? We wonder why people are apathetic with who we vote into office. We've got to address some of these issues. It's also very interesting, and I support the issue of if the PUD was turned down, how often do you guys override what their decisions are? You wonder why people are questioning things. When you go back, when I got onto city numbers, there are two council members that have received $1,000 in donations from the developer's attorney and another $1,000 from the developer's builder. That causes problems with people. When decisions are being made by the city council that people do not support, and there's direct funding coming into their campaigns, people are wondering why decisions are being made. You've heard issues on the PUD. You've heard issues on traffic study. I sat here listening to why the traffic study failed. Didn't seem to matter. There's issue after issue, these zoning clauses, of why this should not be happening. And we're seeing funds coming directly to the city council from the attorney, from the builders of these people, and you have your community wondering what's going on. I really hope that you all pause and think about who elected you into these offices and what they're asking you to do. This is not supported by the community. They're asking you to turn it down and to look at it. There's justifiable reasons. When you go back, when small-scale developers and single-family home builders need a variance, it is the responsibility of the applicant to show hardship, of which financial gain or loss is strictly not allowed. Why is this any different? Why are you overriding the decision of the Planning Commission? There's a lot of questions a lot of people are asking, and I truly hope that you think about those and that you turn this down. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tipton. Would anyone else like to speak in favor or against?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Just give us your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. My name is Bruce Paul Louder. I live at 126 12th Avenue South, Jacksonville Beach, Florida. Been a member of the community for almost 30 years. I taught at Fletcher High School, those senators. I appreciate the work you all are doing here, and I know you are well-intentioned people. Ms. Golding started the meeting by speaking about the LDC. I'm a former attorney. Mr. Stokes mentioned the natural beauty of our community. In the 30 years I've lived here, I've seen it disappearing in front of my eyes. Palm trees disappear, put up by houses, grass disappears, replaced by pavers. Please, this whole project is more, we don't want this. The community does not want it. Financial hardship is not a basis for granting a variance or letting this thing go through. I'd ask you please to rethink this and think about our community. Like the one lady said, the population is getting out of control. Traffic is bad. It's only going to get worse. We used to have neighbors, now we have Airbnbs. I don't like the changes I've seen, and I hope you will try to preserve our way of life. Thank you very much for all your hard work.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for or against? Okay. Oh, Ms. McConville? Come on up. Give us your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, Heather McConville, 619 14th Avenue North. This is basically what I said during the last meeting when we had the same conversation, but I think it's just worth repeating now that you all are present. First, 470 apartments are not going to say, hi and welcome to Jacksonville Beach, we're so happy you're here. So for that to be the very first thing you're going to see when you come over the bridge, it just isn't going to bring our community what we want our visitors to see and what residents want to see. I just want to bring up the fact that Blue Water Apartments, why I appreciate Blue Water Apartments, I think they did a great job. That's 300, a little over 300. This is going to be way over 100 more units. And it's going to be the first thing you see when you come over the bridge. Do we really need another high-density apartment right on Beach Boulevard to begin with? Our strip malls here in Jacksonville Beach, for probably the first time in many years, are actually thriving. So if you want to ask me, I feel great about having a strip mall there and keeping the land use exactly the way it sits right now. With the strip mall, single-family homes behind it, that's where the need is. It's not in more leasing and apartments. I don't know if you've seen the signs. I've definitely seen them. I'm going to call it Oceans Oaks forever, but they're now leasing signs are all over the beach. So I'm wondering, do we even have a need, and do we even have enough residents or people willing to spend the money to rent those apartments? We're counting on you guys to keep our small beach community just that. We already have pedestrian safety issues. Don't need to probably go into a lot of detail about that. The only people that are going to use the viewing platform that they proposed, that was going to be just this great idea, is going to be the people that live there. No resident's going to go park in the apartments if there's even any parking available to go walk out on a viewing platform. And then what would stop the developer from future land use coming back here in the conservation areas? And that's another huge concern to me, is that this is what he wants today, but I guarantee you he'll be back in years to come to develop on that conservation property as well. So I'm just urging all of you guys to please deny this development.
Thank you. Did you want to address any comments, Mr. Beeman?
If I could, Madam Mayor, I appreciate the opportunity. Just a couple of quick points, because a lot of this was in fact, all of it was covered at the last meeting, but in terms of the environmental impacts, I think that's something that we talked a lot about at the last meeting. Again, there's no impacts to the saltwater marshes. There's no impacts to the freshwater wetlands. We're not impacting the flood zones. That was the reason for the long delay, was to get approvals from FEMA to basically analyze the flood zone and what it exists today in the real world. Also no impacts to the coastal high hazard area. So the natural beauty and all of the environmental concerns are addressed, and not only addressed, but actually improved due to the water quality improvements that we talked about at the last meeting as well. The existing parking lots don't have any stormwater controls. What we're proposing will actually treat the stormwater before it's discharged into the intercoastal. So it's actually a net benefit environmentally. Secondly, there is no financial hardship criterion. We've never argued or asked for any financial hardship consideration. I think that issue is being conflated with the conversation about affordable housing. When we offered affordable housing units, what I said was that we would be limiting the amount that we could provide due to the financial constraints of the project, that the cost of an affordable unit costs the same to build as a unit that's being leased at market rate. There's no requirement that affordable housing be provided. There's no requirement in the code We actually are offering that just as an additional public benefit in order to help be a part of the solution for the affordable housing issues, not only in Jacksonville Beach, but throughout the region. So I think there's a little bit of confusion and conflating some issues there. We're not seeking additional units in order to solve a financial hardship. We're actually adding affordable units, and we've said there's a limit to it on how many that we can add. Regarding the Planning Commission, again, I know that Mr. Robinson's gone over this at length. The Planning Commission, recall, there were several motions, 4 motions that failed. There wasn't a denial from the Planning Commission, and as a result, you have it within your authority to go ahead and take action, which I believe you did appropriately at the last meeting, and I hope you will today. We provided a traffic study. Obviously, the condition on Penman is one that exists today. The traffic study revealed that what we are adding to the roads is not significant. That's in the terms that the Florida statute uses to guide decision makers on traffic issues. And then finally, regarding the affordable housing, the one last point I wanted to make is that people who make 60% of AMI will qualify to live here. So there are bands of people that are allowed to live here. I hope that we get to talk a little bit more in the rezoning about additional conditions to clarify what those rents would be, because they are controlled by Florida statutes. And I've added some language, or suggested some language in the PUD that would make clear what rents people would pay depending on their income limits. So absolutely, people making 60% AMI would qualify to live here and at reduced rents. And but that's for the next topic. For now, we feel like we meet the criteria, and we hope you'll agree with us like you did last week on the small scale land use amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DiBenale. Anyone else who wishes to speak for or against? The public hearing is closed. Before requesting a motion on this ordinance, beginning with myself, each of the members is requested to indicate for the record both the names of persons and substance of any ex parte communications regarding this application. An ex parte communication refers to any meeting or discussion with a person or citizen who may have an interest in this decision which occurred outside of the public hearing process. I did not have any ex parte communications with regards to the small scale land use amendment. Mr. Stokes?
Nothing from since last time.
Nothing.
Nothing.
It's either this one or the other one. I received an email from Mr. DiBenale just talking about some of the changes that are coming up. I think that's in the net one, but I want to make sure it's covered in this. I did forward that email to the city attorney. Nothing.
Nothing with regard to the small-scale land use amendment.
Thank you. And can I have a motion to approve the ordinance as read by title?
I move that we adopt ordinance 2022-8181 on the second reading for a small-scale land use amendment for the Beach Boulevard mixed-use neighborhood center.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Before opening the floor for discussion or questions by the council, please be reminded that our decision will be based on the criteria set forth in the Land Development Code, staff's report, the recommendation of the Planning Commission, and the public input in all hearings. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion by council? Ms. Golding.
Ms. Ireland, could you please go over the factors that the city council has to consider with regard to the small-scale land use amendment?
Yes, ma'am. Give me one moment to find that. So for changes to the comprehensive plan, and this is per section 34182B of our Land Development Code. The first one is changed projections in the comprehensive plan that affect the boundaries of the future land use map. The second one is changed assumptions regarding demographic trends or land availability in the comprehensive plan, including but not limited to growth in the area, development of vacant land, new development, etc. Number 3 is data errors, including errors in mapping, vegetative types, and natural features. Number 4 is new issues that have arisen since adoption of the comprehensive plan. Number 5 is the recognition of the need for additional detail or comprehensiveness in the comprehensive plan. And number 6 is data updates.
And can you, I guess, go over the staff's recommendation with regard to these criteria?
Sure. So from staff's perspective, some of these are not applicable. The one that we have kind of leaned on to support our recommendation of approval is the second one, change assumptions. it lists things like growth in the area. The comprehensive plan at the time did not accurately reflect projected growth at the time when it was updated in 2011. It was presuming, I believe it was a 1.4% increase in population when the reality is around 10%, indicating to us that there's a need for additional housing in the area based on our actual growth as opposed to the projected growth. But again, some of these items are just not applicable, such as data errors, errors in mapping, or any changes to any of the data in the comprehensive plan.
So I'm curious, since we're going to be updating our comprehensive plan, then will we also be updating the projected growth for the city of Jacksonville Beach as well?
Yes, ma'am. We will look at all the data and analysis, just like we do anytime there's a comprehensive change. The actual growth from the last 10 years, it was also around 11%. So we're seeing a consistent growth in our population, but all of that data will be provided when we get to that part of updating the comp plan.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Nichols?
Yes, Ms. Ireland. Just to clarify, I know there's been continual misinformation about this, but just, Mr., did the Planning and Zoning Committee recommend denial for this?
No, sir, they did not. So they did make 4 motions, as Mr. DiBenel referenced. The first 2 were to defer the application to a date certain, but both of those failed. There was a motion to deny that failed, and then a motion to approve that failed. So from our perspective, there was no decision made by the Planning Commission.
Okay, and from my recollection of watching it, the main thing that they were asking for additional information was the traffic study, and that was supplied by the applicant, correct?
Correct. The applicant provided a detailed traffic study after that Planning Commission that all of you have had access to, as well as staff.
Is that a requirement?
It is not.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mason?
Question. Watch the meeting, and a couple of the commissioners were asking for more time, correct? But when was the information given to them?
Well, the Planning
2
Commission
days
had
before
the
the
application about 11 days in advance of the meeting, which is a lot sooner than we normally provide the agenda. Additionally, staff met with each of them individually to ensure that any questions they had were answered. However, I would say almost a year that information's been out there, because if you recall, the application was scheduled for a Planning Commission meeting around a year before it was actually heard, but it was deferred at that point in time. The bulk of the information in the application remained the same, with some changes in regards to the site plan, clustering the buildings closer together towards the center of the site, but the general context of the application remained the same from its original format.
So they had plenty of time to look over it?
I believe they did, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? I did also want to clarify one piece of information that was delivered. The petition that was presented by Ms. Conroy was not in reference to either the PUD or the small scale text amendment. It was about saving Adventure Landing, which my understanding from everything that we've heard is that Adventure Landing is not, it's not savable at this point in terms of the developer's intentions with the property. Ms. Golding.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had one more follow-up or comment I wanted to make. I appreciate Ms. Ireland going over the criteria that the City Council has to consider, and we are legally required to base our decisions on those criteria. And I would be honest with you, I have gone through our comp plan, all the way through the comp plan, and I've looked for every reason, every policy goal or objective that I could cite that we could use to say this project would not be consistent with our comprehensive plan, and I couldn't find anything. So for that reason, I will be supporting the small-scale land use amendment.
Any other questions or comments from council? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Dumas?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries. The next item is 2022-8182. Madam Clerk, will you read the ordinance by title?
An ordinance of the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, establishing a planned unit development, PUD, zoning district within the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, as provided under Chapter 34 of the Code of Ordinances of said city, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Thank you. This ordinance to amend the PUD zoning regulations of a property is before the council for a public hearing and consideration on its second reading under the laws of the state of Florida. An application to amend the zoning regulations governing a property is handled as a quasi-judicial proceeding. A quasi-judicial proceeding means that the governing body is now functioning in a manner similar to a court, with the mayor and council sitting as impartial decision makers, hearing testimony and questioning presenters who are to provide substantial and competent evidence to support their side of the issue. It is the duty of the council to arrive at sound decisions regarding the use of the property within the city. This includes receiving citizen input regarding the proposed use on the neighborhood, especially where the input is fact-based and not a simple expression of opinion. It is the applicant's burden to demonstrate that their application is consistent with the Land Development Code and the comprehensive plan. If the applicant is successful in showing consistency, then it is up to the local government to produce competent, substantial evidence of record that the application should be denied. The council's decision on a zoning amendment application is based on the criteria set forth in section 34-211 of the Land Development Code. Each member of the council has been provided a copy of the criteria. In addition, the council has received a copy of the application and the staff and planning commission reports on this PUD zoning amendment request. I will now open the public hearing on ordinance number 2022-8182. If a spokesperson for the applicant is here, and he is, Mr. DiMatteo, if you'd like to present any updates to the proposal.
Madam Mayor, Steve Even, I wanted to drive Suite 1200 here on behalf of the applicant again. I sent to each of you draft revisions to the conditions that the staff had prepared. Staff prepared verbatim amendments that were made at the last meeting, and I took the liberty to add some additional language, or at least suggest some additional language to several of those. I have hard copies. I'm not going to pass them out right now, but when we get to the appropriate point, when we start talking about conditions, I would appreciate the opportunity to go through them. I also have additional copies of the site plan that shows the location of the trees that would be preserved, as well as the table that I mentioned previously showing the rent levels based on household income and number of members of each household and unit size. So I'm not going to pass those out now, but whenever the appropriate time is, I'm prepared to talk about those. And those, again, are the same exact things that I sent out by email, I guess this weekend, in advance of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, and apologize, slight breach in conduct of the meeting. I forgot to say that the public hearing is not open. Thank you, Mr. DiBenau. I don't have any cards specific to this item. Come on up, you can speak. You'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Duke Lewis, and I live at 18 Hobson Road. I just want to take the opportunity to kind of clarify a few things. What I just heard, yes, the Planning Commission did vote it down, but the Planning Commission was very firm in their assertion that they did not have enough information to make a decision on this. So yes, it was not voted down, but it was clear the disdain of them for not having more information in order to make a decision. And I believe one of the members of the Planning Commission is named Dave Dahl. If you go back to the tape, he specifically cites the lack of time he had. Again, we can talk about the amount of time this amendment has been before, but when something's pulled back, I don't think it's the Planning Commission's job to stay on top of it. So that gap in time from when they previously presented it, pulled it back, and then put it together cannot be used as time. They should have been informed about this. If you go back to that Planning Commission tape, which all of you should do, because at some points it was almost an embarrassment to government, but you'll see that there was a clear leader in that meeting, and that was Mr. DiMatteo. He was able to guide and kind of show the meeting in a particular way. I don't have any land that I need rezoned, but I get him because he's very good at what he does. Again, I know that with the previous vote, this vote will probably follow it, but those two things were not correct. They did, Dave Dahl of the Planning Commission did cite a lack of time to go through the information. They were not wanting to vote it down, but they certainly were wanting more information before they could give it a thumbs up. So yes, it was not voted down, but unanimously, not unanimously, between them, they cited the fact that more information. Somebody told me one time, you only get to sell a property one time, right? Once you sell it, it's someone else's decision. This is your opportunity to shape Jacksonville Beach. And if you think this is what the citizens are after, and I don't even know who I'm kidding. I used to come up here and think I could say, you know what? If you don't vote the way we want, we're going to get the people, we're going to hold signs for your opponents, and we're going to vote against you. But 3 council members were elected without even one vote being cast. So I don't think you really even, you don't even really have to worry about it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Anyone else would like to speak for or against?
Again, my name's Lynn Hireman, I live at 22 Hobson Road. Just like Mr. Lewis said at the Planning Commission meeting, Dave Dahl said he only received a package 2 or 3 days ahead of time. He had to actually go to Ms. Hireman's office and get it copied, and he didn't have time to thoroughly review it. Greg Sutton, who was also on the Planning Commission, Dave Dahl and Greg Sutton have been on the Planning Commission for 15 plus years. The other members of the board are newly elected, so were they even privy to the original application? Who knows? I tried to get the parcel where the church is now currently in place, rezoned to put a small office building similar to the ones across from the cemetery or behind the cemetery. 15 years ago, it was denied. It was zoned residential. A new board came through, a new city council came through, now there's a church there. I was denied that. Again, the vision for the beach is in your hands, and if you think these changes are going to make it better for the citizens, and again, I feel like we're up here beating against a dead tree, but I'm going to say my piece. The rezoning change to PUD gives them high-density residential, 40 units per acre. The multifamily units over behind the police station are zoned RLD or JRM1, which allows 8 to 19 units per acre. That's plenty dense for a multifamily project. By putting 5,000 square feet of so-called commercial in there to get this PUD approved, to double the number of units and increase the density, it is just the guise of the law. And it's in your hands to approve or deny this.
Thank you, Mr. Howman. It's worth noting that the church was denied by the Planning Commission and then sued the city and ended up winning. I'm not meaning to cause a debate there.
No, that's fine. With my final minute, you approve or deny this for fear of getting sued, because the city, apparently the city hasn't ever won a lawsuit on a rezoning. So is that why you're voting this way? Because you're afraid of a big pocket developer? Based on the density he's using, I haven't done the exact calculations, he's paying $20,000 a door. $20,000 a home site. You cut it in half to a reasonable one, it's $40,000 a door. They can still make money if financial hardship or financial gain has to do with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for or against? Any additional comments from the planning department? And, no, and would the applicant like to respond to any testimony by the staff or the public? No? Okay. The public hearing is closed. Before requesting a motion on this ordinance, beginning with myself, each of the members is requested to indicate for the record both the names of persons and the substance of any ex parte communications regarding this application. An ex parte communication refers to any meeting or discussion with a person or citizen who may have an interest in this decision, which occurred outside of the public hearing process. I'll start, I mentioned, and I think it's already been mentioned, the email from Mr. DiBenau with some additional text with regards to the amendments that we had made 2 weeks ago. Mr. Stokes?
We got that same email on the PUD changes.
I got the same email, and we got another email on we spoke on the 3rd as well about the amendments that were made to the application 2 Mondays ago.
Same.
Mr. Nichols?
Like I stated before, I received that email.
I received the same email, which will be forwarded to Ms. Gosselin.
I received the same email, and I also spoke with Mr. Devenel on the phone, and we basically discussed the outstanding items that were asked of the applicant to address in this meeting. In particular, the number of units, he was gonna reassess that and see if there was any way to reduce the number of units. And then also the, looking into providing some funds towards the connection to the viewing platform.
Thank you. I'm sorry, can I get a motion on this item?
I move that we adopt ordinance 2022-8182 on the second reading for the planning unit development PUD district rezoning for the Beach Boulevard mixed-use neighborhood center.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Before opening the floor for discussion or questions by the council, please be reminded that our decision will be based on the criteria set forth in the Land Development Code, and the council is required to approve a clear statement of specific findings of fact, stating the basis upon which such facts were determined and the decision was made. We have a motion and a second. Discussion by council. Ms. Dumont.
I'd like to amend the application to bring the number of units down to 410.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to reduce the number of units to 410. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Mr. Stokes.
Yeah, at the last meeting, I asked Mr. Devenel to just kind of do a little homework for us, and if he has a little report on that. If not, no apologies, I'm not a teacher.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes. Yeah, we were asked a couple of questions. One of them was about the number of units, and we had, based on our review, we can reduce to 415 units, and that's the number that we're comfortable reducing to. Again, I'll overstate it a little bit. We feel like it's almost almost a gift, because we're underneath the 40 units per acre limit that the comprehensive plan sets, but we also understand the sensitivity. So from our perspective, we would agree to 415 if that would be the will of the council, and that, I think, answers the question that you asked me.
Ms. Dumont?
I'd like to amend my motion to 415 units.
Second.
We have a motion to amend to 415. Any, do you want to, your lights on, do you want to say that?
I understand where the residents are coming from, your frustration. I moved here because I like the small town feel of it as well. I also am sensitive to the lack of housing, specifically affordable housing, which I'll get to, in the area. And if we were to try and put any housing anywhere at the beach, this is the most logical place to put it, with the exception of at the end of JTV, but that's all taken already. Unless his client buys Home Depot parking lot, rezones that. And so I'm trying to get to a place that the residents are not going to be comfortable with it, but we also have to understand what the developer can do with the land, and try and get it to be as much of a win-ish situation as we can, which is why I'm proposing the 415, which is down 20-something unit, 427, so it's down 12 units, because there was a 470-something number, but I've never seen that number. So it's down 12 units. Yeah, with the number of units here, and then we'll bring in the number of bedrooms and affordable housing. Thank you.
Mr. Stokes?
Yeah, thanks. Mr. Devenel, are we still okay with 7% on the affordable housing at 415?
Yes, and also just to add to the density conversation, I think we're actually 9 below the maximum, the theoretical maximum based on acreage. So where you were saying 20-ish, that's the true number in terms of the reduction. It's 12 based on what was approved last time, but overall probably 21 or 22 from the max density on the site, which is about, plus or minus a 5% reduction. But Mr. Stokes, yes, 7% based on 415 is, and I haven't done the math on the number of units, but that's acceptable. Yes.
I just did. And so my big thing is affordable housing, workforce housing. Gentleman over here kind of took it a little out of context about, we got to have the carrot and the stick. And I believe in giving the carrot for workforce housing. I've said it for, a year now. So anyway, at 7% of 427 is 29.89, hoping you would round up to 30. 7% of 415 is 29.05 units, hoping that we could keep it at 30 and maybe change the 7% to 30 workforce or affordable housing units.
Yeah, however, the math, 30 units is fine, and whatever the math is, if you want to change the percentage or you want to just say 7% and round up on partial units, whatever it is to get to 30, that would be fine.
Okay.
And I noticed that the dispersed language was included as well from the last, or the interspersed language was included from the last amendment as well, and that certainly we would agree with that. We would agree with that too, yes.
Ms. Dumont.
Well, since we jumped over to the affordable housing from the number of units, for affordable housing, you also noted that it would only be 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, and I requested you to look into 3 bedroom apartments because there are families out there who have 2 kids.
Right, so, and again, the process, I think maybe it'll have to be, but I'll answer the question, but the process in terms of how to get it on there. I think you had asked us to see if we could do a couple of 3-bedroom units. We could do 4 3-bedroom units. Originally, we had planned 0, but 4 3-bedroom units is a request that we can accommodate, even with a reduction to 415 units. And we're not going to tie specific bedrooms to affordable criteria, but the 3 bedrooms will be available for affordable units if they're leased that way. So they won't be held out specifically, but they'll be have the opportunity, everyone will have the opportunity to lease those as well. I'm trying to anticipate other questions you may have. It's a long answer to your question.
Thank you.
Ms. Golding?
Thank you, Mayor. So, Ms. Ireland, the comp plan policy LU 1.5.6 talks about community commercial, and to Ms. Dumont's point, the parcels on Beach Boulevard within 1 block of designated mass transit routes. Can you just confirm what is the density that would be permitted for this development based on that comp plan policy?
Sure, with the change to high-density residential, the max would be 40 units per acre.
Okay, thank you. And I believe Blue Water was also built at 40 units per acre.
Correct, that is their max density. I haven't done the math to see exactly where they're at, but yes.
Okay, and this puts this development less than 40 units per acre. I guess I see Mr. Devenow, I don't know if he's calculating, but or is he texting?
No.
With the acreage that's developable, the 10.9 acres, the max number of units they would be allowed for the density was 436. So the 414 is obviously below that.
Okay.
I haven't done the math, but it's below 40.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Jansen?
Ms. Harlan, are you aware of any affordable housing in Blue Water?
I am not. No, it's not required, so I'm not sure if they provide it or not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the amendment on the floor is to change the number of units to 415. I don't see any other lights, so Madam Clerk, let's do a roll call on that first amendment.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Demott?
Yes.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries. Back to the original motion as amended. Ms. Dumont?
I would like to make a motion to note that instead of doing a percentage or do the 7% but round up, the 30 units will be based off the HUD number, the Florida HUD numbers for affordable housing within that unit, and of those affordable housing units, at least 4 will be 3-bedroom units interspersed throughout the development.
Can you restate that?
You can't repeat that word for me?
No, I cannot. I couldn't even write notes down. Can you just succinctly restate your amendment before we get it seconded?
To amend the number of affordable units from 7% to 30 units, of which at least 4 will be 3-bedroom units.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Nichols?
I think that Mr. Juvenile said that they would have 4 3-bed units throughout it that were not tied to that he had said that they would be all right with that. So I'm okay with having 3-bedroom units, 4 3-bedroom units throughout the complex. And if they fall into this category, fine, but I don't think those 3-bedroom units need to be tied to the percentage of affordable housing.
Mayor, if I
Yes,
could.
please address.
So just, for folks that are watching, the reason that I'm talking now is because it's a contract zoning, and so we have to reach a meeting of the minds on the amendment in order for the rezoning to be effective. So, we will hold out 4 units as 3-bedroom units, but we don't want to just dedicate those 4 to being affordable units. So we would agree with 30 units being held out as affordable. We would agree to, throughout the development, 4 of the units being 3-bedroom units. But it may be that all 4 of them become affordable, or it may be that none of them become affordable. We'd like to leave it up to the property manager to decide what becomes available for what uses. So the first part of your motion, the 30 units, we are happy with that. That would be fine. The 4 3-bedroom units, we're fine with that. Just not putting them together all in the same bucket, because then it gives the maximum flexibility for the manager to utilize them however appropriate.
Ms. Dumont?
Thank you. Just so I'm clear, so that means so how are you measuring those 30, you see 30 units as affordable?
Correct.
How do you choose which 30 are affordable?
Well, they'll be, I don't know, they'll be interspersed throughout the property so that, and I thought that was a really good suggestion, so they won't all be in one wing of one building or all in one building. They'll be dispersed throughout the property. But I don't know the answer on how they will be allocated. It's probably going to be market driven. The first 30 people there that want to do it, to qualify, probably are going to get the first opportunity to lease those units. And if and out of the first 30 people, 4 of them are 3-bedroom unit, they desire 3 bedrooms, then that would be who they would go to. But I don't know how to manage, and I don't know how we could create a condition that would, deal with the issue that I think you're seeking to address. If you wanted to reserve 1 3-bedroom unit as part of the 30, I guess we could do that. But more than that, I just don't know. I'd rather let the management of the property figure out what the best way is to do that.
So the management of the property could say that only 1-bedroom or studio apartments are what they will be labeling as affordable.
I have no idea how they would do that. I don't know. I guess theoretically that's true. They could do that. They could also say that only 2s and 3s are available as affordable units. There are as many people at different size families that are affordable. One of the things we talked about at the last meeting was how unusual it was. Jacksonville Beach does not have a large population of married families with kids relative to other parts of the region. And so that's why the demographics for this property skews towards 1 and 2 bedroom units. If there was a huge market for families with kids, then you'd probably see more units in here that are 3 bedrooms or larger. But just holding those 4 within the 30, I think would be, I think that would be, again, then everyone would know if you have a 3-bedroom unit, you're an affordable person. So it kind of defeats the purpose of the interspersed concept. So again, I won't be repetitive. We agree with the 30 units. We agree with the 4 3-bedroom units, just not combining them into the same group.
So there'll only be 4 3-bedroom units throughout the 415 units?
Correct. That's right.
Any other comments on the amendment as proposed by Ms. Dumont for changing 7% affordable housing to 30, of which 4 will be 3-bedroom apartments, Mr. Stokes?
Yeah, and Ms. Robinson would probably have more insight, but I think, what is it, Fair Housing Standards Act, and renting, there is a, I mean, you can't just rent studios as affordable housing, because it's a I'm pretty sure that's a violation if you have interspersed, but I could be wrong, but I just remember from when I was renting apartments, it's pretty detailed.
All units are going to be available to all people.
Yeah.
Regardless of any criteria you can think of. So, to answer your question, I think everyone will have an opportunity to rent whatever units, no matter the size.
Any other comments, Mr. Nichols?
Can I make an amendment to our amendment?
You can try.
Order.
Go ahead.
I'd like to amend Councilmember Dumont's amendment to just address the percentage or the total number of affordable housing that's going to be in there, and then we can address the other one, I would think, separately. So my amendment is going to be that the applicant will supply 30 total affordable units within the development.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, basically to eliminate the reference to the 4 3-bedrooms in Ms. Dumont's amendment. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Meza,
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols,
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes,
Yes.
Councilmember Dumont,
No?
Councilmember Golding,
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen,
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman.
Yes. Okay, so the amendment as amended is to change the 7% to 30 units of affordable housing. Is there any other discussion on this item? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Mayor Hoffman, can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
The amendment as amended is to change 7% of affordable housing to 30 units. Is that accurately portraying the amendment? Okay. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Nichols,
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes,
Yes.
Councilmember Dumont,
Yes.
Councilmember Golding,
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen,
Yes.
Councilmember Meza,
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman.
Yes, amendment passes. Any other amendments? Mr. Stokes?
Yeah, I would like to, okay, what I want to do is better tie C to the affordable housing statute, so please, city attorney, help me, to get this right. So, the developer shall make 30 units of the total residential apartment units available for rent as affordable from time to time in accordance with section 420.0004 Florida statutes for 15 years, so long as the residential units are made available for rent, and those units shall be interspersed throughout the project. Says the second part, the rent shall be governed in accordance with low income limits and rent limits for multifamily rental programs, basically the Florida statute. Does that need to go into the document? So that affordable is defined.
So that's one of the proposed changes that Mr. DiGanella suggested by his email earlier today. It's a little bit more succinctly stated that as we were looking over these proposed amendments, we determined they were not really necessary and really sort of created a level of specificity that made it more difficult for us to be able to monitor and to make people accountable on them. So based on the way the council determined paragraph C to be in its last meeting, we think is sufficient, and then bringing all of those details as to how we get to the place where we can determine whether an applicant meets the criteria for affordable housing, that will be made in-house, on-site, as long as it's in accordance with the Florida statute that's cited.
Okay, then I withdraw my motion. That was my big point, is to make sure that it was affordable housing, as defined.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes. Any other discussion of the original amendment? Mr. Jansen?
Do we need to make a motion for the 4 3-bedroom units? Just add them, to make a motion to require that the 4 3-bedroom units.
If you want to make sure that that is actually done, yes, sir.
I would make a motion that the applicant is required to have 4 3-bedroom units.
Second.
Can we say minimum of?
Minimum of, yes.
Okay.
Second.
And we would be fine with that, Madam Mayor.
Okay, the amendment has been motioned and seconded to require a minimum of 4 3-bedroom units. Any discussion on this amendment? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Dumont?
Yes.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Councilmember Mayor Hoffman?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries, the amendment passes. Mr. Stokes?
Okay, so on G, on the walkway and viewing platform, last time there was not the developer's offer of a contribution of $25,000 towards the design. And if it was, please correct me, but I don't think that was in there last time. So do I need to make a motion on that? Is that there last time?
So, if I may, Madam Chair, no, we were asked, that was one of our homework assignments that we were given when we left, which was what could the developer contribute to the development of the connection from Cheddar Avenue, if that connection ever is achieved. And I didn't go into this in great detail, but really the first way the developer contributed to that connection being possible was by acquiring the property. So we acquired that 30 acres for about $300,000, which allows that connection to take place. And we've committed, as it says already, to building a walkway and a viewing platform south, perpendicular to Cheddar. And so what we did with the homework is we tried to think of a way that we could contribute to the effort coming from Cheddar to make the connection. So we'll provide the easements, we'll provide support permitting, and then what we also said is that once a commercially reasonable easement permits the connection, we would contribute $25,000 towards the design and permitting of the connection. Again, that would be after we have an easement that we've negotiated, and I'm not sure if the easement has to come to City Council, but if it does, then we would come with that easement as well as contribute that amount once the easement's in place. So the last sentence of paragraph G is that expression of that offer. The sentence above that where I add additional language is just clarifying language, and if the city attorney doesn't think it's necessary, I'm okay with it being out, but I just added, I couldn't help myself, I just added it to clarify the intent of that condition.
Thank you. Do you want to make a recommendation for us on language there?
Yes, with respect to the additional language where it's stated this obligation, comma, to permit a city-sponsored connection and provide commercially reasonable easements, that's actually repetitive of the sentence that precedes it, and so I don't believe that particular sentence is necessary. So I would say, if council is entertaining the addition to
Would just be Councilman Stokes' amendment would just be the final sentence,
That's correct.
which is upon negotiation and adoption by the city council of a commercially reasonable easement permitting the connection from Shader Avenue to the viewing platform, the developer will contribute $25,000 towards the design and permitting of the connection to the viewing platform.
That's correct, and I would also just suggest, based on the verbiage commercially reasonable easements, when we're using that in terms of activity taken prior to this particular provision, if maybe we can define what that is or what it will not be, that would be very helpful in terms of accountability and enforceability.
So you mean commercially reasonable easements for access? Maybe add the word for access?
Well, not the access, but simply in the context of easements, what does that look like for the developer?
I'm sorry, I don't follow, I'm sorry.
Commercially reasonable easements, at some point in time, that could be a point of dispute between the parties.
Right.
So we need to have something in place that at least frames what the expectation is on the back end of this. Because up until this point in time, there was a parcel to be granted to the city
Right.
for the purposes of the sign, and now we're talking about an easement, so we just want something.
So this is for the walkway. I'm sorry, this is for the walkway.
Okay.
That's okay, I understand where you're going, and I think that, what I think in the context of the walkway, it would be adoption by the city council of a commercially reasonable access easement, maybe add the word access easement, because what the city would be trying to do would be cross the property that we own, and then access the viewing platform.
Okay, so let me make it a little bit more clear, and then I'll stand down if I'm not understanding what your intent is.
Okay.
But who defines or decides what is a commercially reasonable easement in this context?
Well, I think that reasonable minds would reach a conclusion that would yield an easement. I don't know. That's why those words are they're terms of art. I mean, it doesn't say best efforts. It doesn't say try hard. It says commercially reasonable. I think that if we weren't able to reach an agreement on what the terms of the easement would be, we'd go see a mediator, and they would decide if one or the other of us were being unreasonable in the context of a commercial easement. So I think that language is kind of a good middle ground in the context of a real estate transaction. It's not loaded in favor of the developer. It's not loaded in favor of the city. It's basically saying that we're going to use commercially reasonable efforts to decide.
And I understand the efforts, it was just the easements, now we've taken that language.
Right. So for example, the best example for this situation would be, we have to modify our conservation easement in order to allow the connection across our land. And we're gonna use our commercially reasonable efforts to go modify the easement, to go modify our conservation easement, to allow that to happen. We want the connection to happen. So if the Water Management District denies us, then there's no commercially reasonable way for us to provide an easement to the city because we've been denied by the Water Management District. So, I think the term commercially reasonable is one that I'm not going to say it's well settled, but it's a term that's used in real estate transactions pretty routinely. And it's not putting one side or the other at a disadvantage. It's basically saying we're going to work together to try to get this done. I'm open to other language if you want to, if you have something other than commercially reasonable. But I don't know, I think the record that we're creating today would also probably be a part of that conversation. So we're comfortable with that language. And if there's other language you want to propose, we're happy to react to it. But I think that language combined with this record would reveal that we're going to try, as any reasonable developer would, to try and get it done. We do want the connection.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes. Would you like to provide an amendment? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Jansen, you want to speak now or until when there's an amendment?
I want to speak now.
Okay.
So the purpose is for that connectivity from the city to connect to the platform, is that correct, Mr. Dina?
Right.
Mr. Stefopoulos, do you see anything from your chair that gives you any heartache in the language?
I'm not an attorney, and I didn't stay at the Holiday Inn Express last night. But I'm wondering if the term commercially reasonable makes sense to be in there, if it should just be upon negotiation and adoption by the city council of an easement permitting the connection from Sugar Ave. I don't know if it makes more sense to just use it as easement and not put any adjectives where someone might question what exactly that means to be commercially reasonable.
So, if I could react to that.
Sure.
So, again, that's why that language is included. So there is some measuring stick to go against. For example, if the words commercially reasonable were deleted, then the city would have an argument that you have to give me an easement no matter what. I don't care if the Water Management District won't give it to you. And so then we're signing up for, a $5 million fight with the Water Management District in order to provide the easement, in order to be consistent with this condition. So that's why those types of, that's why those types of phrases are included, because it gives some measure of accountability on what efforts have to be made. So I would say we need something in there to modify what effort the developer has to take. Because it's not a do it at all costs. This isn't a, anyway, I think I'm being repetitive now. But.
Sure. I think the key word though there is reasonable. And I don't think a $5 million argument is reasonable. So.
I mean, we could say that, I don't know how else to do it. I mean.
Ms. Dumont?
Thank you. I could see connection provide a reasonable easement. I'm uncomfortable with the commercially, I understand your client's position on this. You don't want a $5 million fight with the water district and then $25,000 on top of that to help build through it. I understand that, but from how I'm looking at it, this was one of the selling points that we could give to our residents, that we are connecting the urban trail with a viewing platform out there. And my concern here is this is an out where you don't, if it's not commercially reasonable, that one of the few carrots that we have for the residents will never come to fruition.
I would accept Ms. Dumont's change, just striking the word commercially and just make it a reasonable easement.
Mr. Nichols?
I'll go ahead and make a motion then. Upon negotiation and adoption of the City Council of a reasonable easement permitting the connection from Center Avenue to the viewing platform, the developer will contribute $25,000 towards the design and permitting of the connection to the viewing platform.
There's a motion to amend. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Stokes?
Oh, yeah, no, sorry, I was just saying, I was gonna say second.
We need to turn your light off.
After all that, I didn't get to make the motion.
We're sorry. Would you like us to do it over again?
No.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on this amendment? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Dumont,
Yes.
Councilmember Golding,
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen,
Yes.
Councilmember Meza,
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols,
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes,
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman.
Yes, the amendment passes. Ms. Dumont.
I would like to make an amendment about the sign and what Ms. Robinson was talking about with easements. Again, where'd it go? There was going to be through a perpetual easement and a mutually agreed upon location for the welcome sign to Jacksonville Beach versus the easement that was going to have to be agreed upon. I'll rephrase that. I would like to, I know you're looking at I would like to make a motion to amend section E so that it reads, the developer shall make a parcel of land available to the city through a perpetual easement in a mutually agreeable location.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the proposed amendment? Ms. Dumont?
And Madam Chair, again, we would agree with that. And again, this was part of the homework. I think the city manager asked us at the last meeting whether we would be contributing land for the sign or putting the sign on an easement parcel. So there is, on the site plan, in the upper left-hand corner, kind of in the northwest corner of the site plan, there's a square that says sign parcel or out parcel or iconic entry feature parcel. That easement will be located somewhere in that vicinity. That is, I think, what this condition E clarifies, that it would be somewhere in that general vicinity. And the language, certainly, we would agree with it the way that it was stated in the amendment just now.
Thank you. Any discussion, further discussion on this easement for the sign? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Golding,
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen,
Yes.
Councilmember Meza,
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols,
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes,
Yes.
Councilmember Dumont,
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman.
Yes, motion carries. Any additional amendments or discussion? Ms. Dumont?
I just wanted to clarify that section G, when we said provide commercially, when we remove commercially reasonable easements, that commercially reasonable easements is removed from the whole section, not just the one amended line. Does that need to go through a new amendment? Because it's in the original language as well as the amended language. It still is in the original language, but we removed it from the amended language, but not from the original language.
That's a good catch. Madam City Attorney?
Yes, I saw that, and if you want to do that consistently throughout, you can. However, the order or the obligation is going to arise in that last sentence, which was adopted tonight, with the references that are made earlier in that particular paragraph that could serve the developer to sort of suggest that the extent to which reasonable easements would be permitted or required would be those that are commercially reasonable. So it does put some framework to it, but the obligation arises under the language that was actually adopted. So it's not technically necessary for you to change that throughout the entire paragraph.
I like fewer words rather than more, so I would like to amend section G to change any mention of commercially reasonable easements to just be reasonable easements.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the proposed amendment?
Madam Mayor, I think we're okay with that. I think that the conversation here today has provided enough of a record that if anyone wanted to go back and look at it, that neither side is trying to get an advantage over the other. We all know that we're going to be reasonable when we get to this requirement, and so taking out the term commercially in that one other location in paragraph G, we would agree to that in the spirit of the conversation we're having today. I think it's clear from the record that we're trying to all get to the same place.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this amendment? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Dumont?
Yes.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, the amendment, it's getting late. The amendment carries. Any other, Ms. Dumont?
Thank you. I have a general question for our city attorney. If this, we've spent a lot of time making sure we're trying to get this to where we can get agreement. If the property owner sells the property to another developer, how much of this stays?
The rezoning will run with the land, but. With respect to the development, obviously if the developer isn't there to be required to perform those services, those particular terms, I think, would expire. But I'm happy to look into that more closely
No,
and to answer that question for you at a later time.
Well, yeah, if I may, Madam President, or Madam Mayor, the rezonings in Jacksonville Beach are recorded, and so they run with the land. And so this obligation, this creates a zoning district on the property for anybody that owns the property. So our view is whether we develop it and keep it for 100 years or whether we sell it tomorrow, these requirements are on the land. And anyway, if there was any effort to change them, the property owner, whoever it might be, would have to come back and petition the city council to change them. So that's our view on it, that all of these obligations run with the land. And so that's our understanding. That's how we're approaching it.
Planning department is confirming. I just want to make sure if this land were sold, that everything that we're working on now gets attached.
Right, yeah, they don't, unlike a zoning exception or a variance in some jurisdictions where if you don't start within a year, they disappear. Or in other cities like in Jacksonville, you don't record the zoning, it's just part of the public record. In Jacksonville Beach, you record the zoning and it clouds title for good or bad forever.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council?
If I could, Mayor, there's one other revision at the end of paragraph E about the 2-year notice and the 2 years thereafter to build. And I'd just like to get Attorney Robinson's opinion on that. Is that duplicative language in your opinion, the language that I wrote there, or does that need to be adopted as a part of paragraph E?
You mean the additional?
The additional language in
I
yellow.
think we inserted that language, sir.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. I don't have any other questions based on what we talked about.
Mr. Nichols?
So is this the final vote, or is this on the amendment?
This is
current
the-
amendment?
No, we passed that into the final amendment.
Okay, I just wanted to make a couple comments. First of all, in order to deny this, I mean, we have to have substantial and compelling fact-based reasons. And, you know, it's very easy to say, hey, I don't want this, and I feel like it's going to be too congested traffic-wise. It's not within our purview. It is our responsibility to act within the city's requirements for approval or denial of this. And then from the Planning and Zoning Committee, I know, I'm sorry, Duke, I read your first name, but Duke Lewis, I just wanted to respond briefly and just say, yes, there was an individual that was saying that he wanted more time. He did have, my understanding is that he did have the information for 13 days before, and then also 2 motions were brought up at the Planning and Zoning to add more time, and they were both denied. So I just wanted to respond to that.
Did adding that more time push it past?
This isn't, I'm sorry, this isn't a call and response.
It's just because you said my name, I apologize.
No, I'm sorry, I appreciate the misunderstanding there. Any other comments? Ms. Golding?
Can I get some clarification on the last question where Mr. DeVal brought up the language, that last underlined addition in E? I don't know that I understood Ms. Robinson, but I don't think that was added in the motion that was made. So were you thinking that that was in the motion?
At the last meeting, what there was some language that required the city to act within, after 2 years of being, let me rephrase that. So the obligation with respect to the welcome sign required it to be completed within a certain period of time. Once the construction was completed, the city was then under an obligation to actually make their arrangements for the welcome sign within no later than 2 years after the date of completion. By adding this additional language, what we wanted to make sure is that there was at least 2 years carved out for us to act. And we thought by adding the word additional and thereafter, it made clear that those 2 years would not overlap in any way. But that language was based on the discussion that took place at the last council meeting and before council approved that amended. It was just simply to make it more clear.
But I think Mr. Devenow's question was in regard to the underlying portion that in between, it says this obligation will last for 2 years to notify the developer, and then the underlying portion of the city's intent to proceed with the welcome sign or iconic entry feature. He was asking if that language should be added because he had proposed that be added for clarification.
I understood his question to be whether it was duplicitous and repetitive. And so, again, based on the facts that I've tried to summarize, I didn't think it was duplicitous. It was necessary to make it more clear. But that's, again, based on my understanding of his particular question.
Okay, but I don't recall that that there was a motion made for that to be added tonight. So if we want this to be there, we do need to add that. And I can make a motion to that effect, if you would like to see that there.
I was looking at the original language, and so, again, based on internal conversations before this meeting tonight, we looked at it in terms of whether it was actually needed. So I will leave it to council to determine whether it's better to have it in that particular provision or not. But we didn't see the need for it.
Okay, if you don't see a need for it, that's fine. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from council? Ms. Dumont.
I want to thank all the residents who were here, and you made it through a long meeting. And I know that this has been over a year-long project with a lot of emotion attached to it because it's on the Adventure Landing land. I understand that, I appreciate that, but also legally with what we're required to do, I believe that council has gotten to a place where residents are getting something out of this, whereas, it could be where you got nothing. But I believe we've gotten to a decent place that will meet some of the needs of the residents, not all of them, some of them, and as well as with the applicant who did give up, some units and things that would have been more profitable on this property.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? So this will be the final vote on the original motion that has 6 amendments on it. I'm not going to restate the amendments unless anybody needs them. Oh, go ahead, Ms. Dumont.
Forgot why I got so caught up in the other thing. I forgot to mention this part. For those who are upset about this, be upset and be involved in the LDC and the comp plan, because it's how they are currently written is why our hands are bound to why this is passing this way. So be involved. We are doing it right now, so please be involved and make sure that the comp plan reflects really how you see the city developing over the next 15 and 30 years.
Thank you, Ms. Golden.
And I have to agree with Ms. Dumont that we are bound by certain criteria, and if we want those criteria to change, or if we want things to be done differently, then that needs to be institutionalized in our comp plan and our land development code. So I definitely encourage citizens to get involved in this process that we have going, and it's going to be going for the next 18 months or so, I believe. So there will be, Ms. Ireland has assured us that there will be plenty of opportunities for citizens to be engaged in the process. And at a minimum, right now, please go online to cojbupdate.com and provide your input there. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Mesa,
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols,
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes,
Yes.
Councilmember Dumont,
Yes.
Councilmember Golding,
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen,
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman.
Yes, motion carries. If you can believe it, we have another item on the agenda. Final item. Would you like to give a staff report, Ms. Ireland, on ordinance E?
Yes, I'll wait for the city manager to keep up the presentation. Do you want to scroll through it, or do you want me to drive? I would be happy to drive. Thank you. All right, last item, I know the clock says 8:30, but it is getting close to our bedtimes, at least me anyway. Mayor Hoffman, would you like me to just go ahead and do the staff report first?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the property that is the subject of this rezoning application is already zoned redevelopment district, or RD. So this is an RD amendment application for what is referred to as the Dolphin Depot property. It was rezoned originally in 2012 and then amended in 16 and 17 to clarify some of the uses. However, there is a new owner that's developing the property, which is Travado. They do have a vested height of 68 feet based on a settlement agreement with the courts back from when the height was done in 2004. And the community, I'll get into the details of the project, but kind of skipping ahead, the CRA and the Planning Commission reviewed the application in September and October respectively, and both recommended approval. Just a refresher, in case this is a new project to you, the location is directly to the west of where Margaritaville is, so First Street North, 2nd Street North, 7th Avenue, and 6th Avenues North, so it is almost the entirety of the block here. About 3/4 of the block is the project area. It's been vacant for quite some time. So as it is approved now, it is a mixed-use commercial project approved by council in 2017 for a project consisting of 57 hotel rooms, 57 apartments, and approximately 2,500 square feet of commercial at a height of 65 feet, and the parking to be provided for the requirements of the land development code. Now that there is a new property owner, they are requesting to amend the RD zoning to better clarify the commercial uses. And in staff's opinion, the project is more consistent with the downtown redevelopment plan and the central business district zoning requirements of open commercial on 6th Avenue North. So some more details on what they're requesting is same number of hotel and apartments at 57 and 54 respectively, with 4,000 square feet of restaurant as part of the hotel, and an additional 1,000 square feet of retail space, both fronting on 6th Avenue North. The building footprint and elevation remain mostly unchanged, and again, parking is fully provided for the requirements of the land development code. So this is the amended site plan. The portion that is highlighted in yellow is the area where they are requesting the primary changes, again, to clarify the commercial uses, which you'll see in the project narrative. The previous project narrative just said essentially 2,500 square feet of commercial and did not provide the level of detail that is in this current application, more clarifying or better clarifying the uses and providing this active commercial space here along 6th Avenue North. This is the elevation in the application, again, essentially unchanged from what was approved in 2017. They've provided just a slight updated version of this. elevation. So this is the south elevation again from 6th Avenue North. The Community Redevelopment Agency and the Planning Commission again did recommend approval of the application following staff report. The CRA did recommend to consider, that the applicant consider 2 items, and that is the applicant would identify opportunities to visually enhance the First Street side of the building, that's again directly across from Margaritaville, with some sort of art or lighting feature along First Street, and also that the applicant reviews the site plan for opportunities to relocate the dumpster from its proposed location, which is right about here. And I believe, and again, the Planning Commission did also recommend approval. That pretty much covers the summary of the rezoning amendment, and I would be happy to answer any questions, and I believe Mr. DiBenale probably has some information to add as well.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you read the ordinance by title?
An ordinance of the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, amending redevelopment district RD District Ordinance Number 2017-8089, supplementing the comprehensive zoning regulations and plan for the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, as provided under Chapter 34 of the Code of Ordinances of said city, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
This ordinance is for the redevelopment district RD rezoning of a property. Let's try this again. This ordinance for the redevelopment district RD rezoning of a property is before this council for a public hearing and consideration on its first reading. Under the laws of the state of Florida, an application to amend the zoning regulations or map governing a property is handled as a quasi-judicial proceeding. A quasi-judicial proceeding means that a governing body is now functioning in a manner similar to a court, with the mayor and council sitting as impartial decision makers, hearing testimony and questioning presenters who are to provide substantial and competent evidence to support their side of the issue. It is the duty of the council to arrive at sound decisions regarding the use of property within the city. This includes receiving citizen input regarding the proposed use on the neighborhood, especially where the input is fact-based and not a simple expression of opinion. It is the applicant's burden to demonstrate that his or her application is consistent with the Land Development Code and the comprehensive plan. If the applicant is successful in showing consistency, then it is up to the local government to produce competent, substantial evidence of record that the application should be denied. The council's decision on an RD rezoning application is based on the criteria set forth in section 34-347C3I of the Land Development Code. Each member of the council has been provided a copy of this criteria. In addition, the council has received a copy of the application and the staff, Planning Commission, and Community Redevelopment Agency recommendations on this rezoning request. I will now open the public hearing on ordinance number 2022-8183. The spokesperson for the applicant.
So, Madam Chair, thank you again, Steve DiBenale, 1 Independent Drive, Suite 1200. So, on Dolphin Depot, we had a pretty exhaustive conversation at both the CRA and the Planning Commission. We talked about things regarding height, setback, uses, the mix of uses, parking. All of those issues stem from a court settlement regarding this property from many years ago. And so what we've done here is we have adhered to the court order as well as the prior rezonings in virtually all respects except for one, and that is along 6th Avenue North. Our belief was that along 6th Avenue North, that basically this design, I don't know if the original plan is in here. Oh, okay. So along 6th Avenue North on the south boundary here, right in this area, all of this was basically shown as lockers or storage for residents and people that use the building. We felt like it really abandoned the entirety of 6 North and what could be done in terms of activating the street. So what we're really doing is we're asking for the rezoning in order to permit all of this in yellow, all of these commercial uses. And that's the original purpose of the rezoning. The setbacks, the height, everything else is the same from what was prior approved and consistent with the court order. There were 2 main conversations at both levels below. One was about First Street. and the anxiety about what First Street would look like. We share that anxiety. We think it is not the ideal design. Unfortunately, we can't go back and achieve the project consistent with the court order and the prior rezonings by rearranging the way the buildings are on the site. So what we committed to do on First Street is that we will do some type of screen, some type of a facade. I don't know if it's going to be a green wall. I don't know if it's going to be neon lights. I don't know if it'll be a mural. But something to activate First Street, the facade along First Street is something that we support and that we want to have accomplished. We simply haven't had enough time to bring you a design and show it to you. So to the extent that you would like to add language requiring us to do some type of a facade along First Street, we're all for that. That was issue number one. Issue number two was this dumpster. And so we had folks from over here in these units basically asking us, can you get rid of this dumpster? That dumpster, the reason that's gray is that's been on the site plan since it was originally approved in 2012. And so we committed at the Planning Commission that we would look at it and we'd try to figure out a way to get rid of that dumpster or to move it to the interior of the property. And so I'm going to pass out if I can, I'll just pass out a site plan that captures that. Now, the site plan I'm passing out hasn't been reviewed by Public Works, it hasn't been reviewed by anyone at the city. So I don't think, and I think Director Ireland and I spoke earlier today, we don't think that the City Council should adopt the site plan tonight. Maybe just adopt a condition in words that captures the intent of the site plan. And then over the next 2 weeks or so, the staff can have a chance to look at it and make sure that it still meets all the other requirements. But basically what we've done is we've taken this dumpster here and we've moved it from here to right here, to the interior of the property. So again, moving the dumpster on the big screen from here to this location. And so when you look at the site plan, that's really where you should be focusing on, is the interior of the property. What that does is it takes the dumpster off of the main street, off of Second, and moves it to a place that's more interior and better screened. So perhaps a condition would be something that says the developer shall move the dumpster from Second Street north to the interior of the property. And then by the time we come back in 2 weeks, we'll have a site plan, hopefully that looks like the one that I just handed out, that reflects that, and you could adopt that as a revised site plan, or you could stick with the site plan that we've produced here and just have the condition that says that the dumpster will be moved to the interior of the property. The other thing that's happened is when this dumpster moves, we added additional handicap parking spaces in this area. So this generator and these two transformers moved over to this side of the drive aisle, and then we expanded it and added additional handicap parking in that location. So those were the two main issues, both of which, well, the first of which we agreed to immediately, and we will design something that's spectacular along First Street. The second one took us a little time to do our homework, but we found an alternative, and that's reflected in the site plan. And those are the main issues that I wanted to discuss. Happy to talk about anything else or any other concerns folks may have.
Thank you, Mr. Ebenau. We do have one speaker card for the public hearing. Mr. Gary Paytel, if you'd like to come up and address the council.
Good evening, Gary Paytel, 725 Con Air Circle, Jacks Beach, Mayor, council members. I just wanted to talk about architectural design and aesthetics for a moment. Good design is not just the building itself, but how a building fits within its fabric, its environment. Along First Street, we've got a very difficult situation. Unfortunately, when Margaritaville was built, it basically turned its back on First Street. And First Street is really the corridor within the city, both from north and south, that is the access points for most people into the downtown area. A walking area, a bicycling area, but along Margaritaville, we've got a 40-foot wall that's nothing more than just some louvers that make that a deadly walk. The only thing you get to see along that walk is the dumpster being pulled in and out of the loading dock. Now, unfortunately, The Dolphin Depot project does almost the same thing along First Street. Other than the one corner, all along First Street, there's 2 levels of parking in there, and that's going to make that a really deadly corridor. Yes, I think that some aesthetic enhancements on that wall will help, and it really needs to be looked at closely. It's got to be something that enlivens that area and entices people to walk down through there. Otherwise, we've got a deadly situation. The other thing that architecture does that's been created in that area is that it has, it's created a wind tunnel. If you get a nor'easter coming down through there now, you're funneling tremendous amounts of air through a narrow corridor. I've done a lot of wind tunnel testing on buildings in urban areas, and I can tell you it's going to be deadly as it continues on south and then hits the Metropolitan. And when it hits the Metropolitan and comes down the base of that building, it's going to be almost unwalkable coming out of that building. So we've got things that we need to look at. Is Dolphin Depot going to be able to solve all of those issues? Maybe not. But as we move forward as a city, we really need to look at the architecture and the implications of what we do from an architectural perspective, because there are ways of mitigating these things, particularly the wind tunnel effects, by use of hard canopies and so forth. As a wind comes down the sheer face of a building with a canopy at street level, you can deflect some of those winds. We just need more creative thought and consideration as we look at our projects in the future. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Paytal. Would anyone else like to speak in favor or in opposition to the proposal or to the application? Seeing none, Director of Planning and Development, wish to respond to any comments?
Thank you. I would, and just to kind of build on what Mr. Paytal said, this property and the Margaritaville are kind of in a unique situation downtown, in that they're both subject to settlement agreements that really limited their site plans, more specifically requiring them to have active commercial on 6th Avenue North, which limits what you can do on the First Street side. So it essentially is kind of the end of our downtown, if you will. And it is a unique situation that they're both across from each other. But obviously, staff supports any enhancements to that First Street side, and we're happy to help in any way with that.
Thank you. Doesn't look like he wants to respond. This public hearing is closed. Before requesting a motion on this ordinance, beginning with myself, each of the members is requested to indicate for the record both the names of persons and the substance of any ex parte communications regarding this application. An ex parte communication refers to any meeting or discussion with a person or citizen who may have an interest in this decision, which occurred outside of the public hearing process. I have had no ex parte communications on this project. Mr. Stokes?
Yeah, I met with Steve Diebenow and Cindy Trimmer a long time ago, probably like June, July, maybe even before that. And it was just the preliminary site plan and just showing what their potential plans were at the time.
I met with Steve Diebenow and Cindy Trimmer October 11th. We discussed the dumpster, because when I was on the planning commission, the dumpster was an issue for the last 2 applications in that spot, and he noted that they can move the dumpster to the middle of the project to solve the dumpster issue.
I met with Steve a couple months ago. We briefly talked about the site plan, but not on this.
I'm gonna amend mine. I think we did talk about it at some point. I don't remember. I'll get you the date, Madam Clerk. I apologize. Corey?
None. Yeah, I met with Mr. Diebenow, I believe it was October 3rd, and he had mentioned this plan in passing. I saw a visual representation of it, but we didn't discuss any of the details of it.
I had a Zoom meeting with Mr. Diebenow and Ms. Trimmer, And I need to double check my dates, but that might have been in July when they they were discussing several projects, and this was one that was just very briefly discussed. And then I had a call with Mr. Devenel today to talk to him about the addition of some language that was not in the previous RD rezoning, and this language is referencing exemptions of bars from the 500-foot distance requirement, and I spoke with him about that today.
Can I have a motion on this item?
I move that we approve ordinance 2022-8183 on the first reading for redevelopment district RD zoning district amendment for the Dolphin Depot RD district, and schedule a second reading for November 21st, 2022.
Second. Before opening the floor for discussion or questions by the council, please be reminded that our decision will be based on the criteria set forth in the Land Development Code, and the council is required to approve a clear statement of specific findings of fact stating the basis for which such facts were determined and the decision was made. I'll now open the floor for comments by council. Mr. Mesa.
Yes, Mr. Devenel, question. On the dumpster, obviously, businesses will be probably successful there. There's hotels, residents. Is that going to be the only dumpster for that entire building?
No, there's one right here as well. So there's a trash room that's from the restaurant. This area here will be a holding place for trash, and then also two right here as well. So basically 3 places. And one of them will be, I'm sorry, Caitlin. So, yeah, no, I'm sorry, Caitlin Taylor is here with the developer, and I may have made a mistake. I think it's just this location.
That will be a conditioned space.
This will be a conditioned space for...
And be rolled out.
And rolled out. So, again, right here and right here.
Okay.
While we're on trash, really quick, let me interrupt the next council members. I think this is the third time that I've seen this project since in my time on council. And at one point, it was over when it was originally off of Second, it was a trash compactor. Is that, it's just a regular dumpster at this point? Because I know that was an area of real concern with the residents was.
Yeah, this is just a regular dumpster, and this is cooled. And these apartments are also owned by the same owner. So I think we have this under control in terms of how everything is working together. They have a dumpster right here, I believe.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jansen.
So, Mr. Devenel, I think my concern is along the, and you kind of addressed it, along First Street. Obviously, that becomes an echo chamber, and it becomes a big problem with Margaritaville being the solid wall, and this ended up being a solid wall. I don't know if you can step it back or create some kind of architectural feature that's way out of my purview, but something that will allow for the breaking up of sound, the breaking up of wind, and giving it more of a aesthetic appeal to it. I know it's a big ask, and I'm not sure how that would be handled, but it is a concern for me because I feel like you end up walking down, a concrete hallway in that portion of the block. But it does sit heavy on my mind and heart as far as what do we do about that and how do we address it.
Right. So softening the aesthetics along First can be done with whatever the garage is clad with, whether it's architectural features or a living wall or something like that. I think to address the concerns that were raised by Mr. Paytow regarding wind and breaking up noise and things like that, I think it probably requires a reimagination of First Street in general. And again, we've got about 6 feet in the setback between the building and the property line. The sidewalk there looks like it's about 10 or 12 feet, and then the back of curb is maybe another 3 or 4. So I think it may be a bigger conversation about how to reimagine First in this location. And certainly the developer would contribute to that effort, whether it's through landscaping or other design ideas. I would hope Margaritaville would do the same. But But I think it's a reimagination of the streetscape itself. And we are willing to participate in that. We agree. I mean, given our druthers, we'd rearrange the entire building. We'd figure out how to do it differently, but given the constraints of the order and the prior approvals, we didn't want to, risk going back in front of a judge or deviating from what was.
I was just going to ask, so in order to make any other kind of change, you have to revisit the settlement through the courts?
Well, I think the biggest issue is that the courts recognized in those court orders, and there were 6 of them throughout Jacksonville Beach, that because of the work that the developer had done to date, that they were vested for their height. So it's based on the work that was actually completed. So this L-shaped design is what was seen. If we abandon the L-shaped design, then the argument would be we'd face a potential lawsuit from somebody who doesn't like the height increase, and they would say, you've changed your plan, you're no longer vested. And we just can't risk that argument, because that's what the court ruled. And the court ruled, basically you spend a bunch of money, as a result you're vested for that plan. And we face this on Azure down in South Jacks Beach, where the development has basically a square project that's 120 feet tall or 110 feet and 10 inches tall, right in the middle of the property. There would be a much better way to design that building, aesthetically, visually, break it up so that people have better view corridors. And we spent a lot of time with prior city attorneys, both in-house and outside attorneys, trying to figure out a way to modify the court order, and we couldn't come up with a way to do it without risking losing the vesting of the height. And that all those same principles and all those same lessons apply here. So that's why we're hamstrung. But we want to be a part of the solution along first, and our first commitment is screening the building. And if there's additional work done on the right-of-way for landscaping or reimagination of that First Street corridor, it is unique. We're all for it. Sign us up, because we want to help.
Thank you.
Ms. Golding? I have a concern about the addition of language that was not in the previous 2 RD rezoning applications that were approved in 2016 and 2017. That has to do with the conditional use that is specifying that bars, lounges, nightclubs are permitted, notwithstanding the 500-foot distance requirement.
Right.
And my concern revolves around the fact that, we've heard very loud and clear that we want other things in our downtown besides bars, and our land development code currently says that we should have a 500-foot distance between bars, and this addition is basically saying you could put a bar there regardless of the 500-foot requirement, correct?
It does, and if you, when appropriate, I'd love to respond to that concern, because there's a reason why we included it, and I think there's a way to address your concern. But I'm happy to do that whenever is appropriate.
Yeah,
Is that
please,
okay?
go ahead.
So again, Councilwoman Golding represented it perfectly, which is, in order to do anything related to a bar, we would have to get a conditional use approval, which means we'd be coming back through the process, there'd be notices, and everybody would be on notice about what was going on. So the reason that language is included is because there is a bar lounge on the 3rd floor of this building. And so there are 3 ways that we can think of for that bar to be permitted. But it is not, our intent is not to build a bar even on the ground floor of the building. Our intent is to do exactly what's shown on the site plan. So the reason that we included the language is to plan for the potential that the bar may face permitting hurdles through the state of Florida through Division of Alcohol, Beverage, and Tobacco. So follow with me here. As a threshold, in order to do a bar, we have to file for conditional use and go through all the approvals. We think that bar will be operated in a couple of different ways. The first way, which is probably the most likely, is that the bar and the restaurant will be owned by the same entity and will be managed by the same entity. So any of you that have been to River and Post, that's exactly how River and Post was permitted. The bar on the 9th floor is owned by the same people that own the restaurant, and the state of Florida recognizes that is one premises. And so the 51% rule about food applies to those 2 spaces. So the two spaces together have to generate 51% sale of food in order to get an SRX license or a special restaurant license. We think that's probably what will happen here, in that the bar and the restaurant will be operated by the same entity. However, we don't know that yet because we haven't gone and found the hotel operator. And so there is a possibility some hotels love to manage both. Other hotels would rather just manage the bar or the restaurant. So, follow me here for a second. The second way that a bar can be permitted inside of a hotel is that the state of Florida allows a bar to be in a hotel with 100 rooms or more. This property has about 54 hotel rooms, and then it has 57 units that are going to be purchased, condos. These units here in Ocean View are also going to be a part of the hotel. So if you add up the total number of pure hotel units, which is the 54 in the big building, and then another, I think, 19 here, you get 73 hotel rooms, which is less than 100. But I believe we have an argument with the state that the other units that are going to be condos, that when they are made available for rent, through marketing and management agreements, I think those units will also count towards the 100, so long as we never go below 100. So the second way that we would get a license to operate that bar would be because we have 100 units, in 100 hotel rooms. However, if that doesn't work, then we would be left with a bar and a restaurant that would be operating independently, and the state would say that that bar doesn't qualify because there are not 100 rooms. So we added that 500-foot language under the potential that the bar and the restaurant would be operated separately. If that were to happen, in other words, if we didn't have them operating together by the same entity, and if the state of Florida told us you cannot have that bar because under the 100-room exception, or the 100-room rule, then what we would do is we would file a conditional use permit, and we would put the bar where it's intended to be, which is basically right in here on the 3rd floor, and it would be interior to the building, and we would file an application, assuming that we could find a license, of course, and we file a conditional use application and seek to pursue permitting the bar separately from the restaurant. But if we did that, it would be after the first two efforts fail, it would be with public notice, and it would be with public hearings. And so my idea on how to address your concern is that in the paragraph regarding the 500-foot waiver of distance, add additional language that says that this 500-foot waiver only applies for bars that are ancillary to the hotel and located on an upper floor. Add some conditional language or some qualifying language that makes clear that it's not permitted for a standalone bar or a standalone use that is independent of the hotel. I know that's a lot of information. I appreciate your patience letting me go on with that.
Well, I would just go on record saying that I cannot support exemption from that 500-foot rule. We have that in our land development code for a reason. We don't want to have high density of bars in the downtown area. I realize we have a limit on the number of bar licenses that we have. If you can, do what you need to do to have a bar in conjunction with the hotel, I'm fine with that. But to exempt our land development code requirement for the 500-foot, I can't support that.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Dumont?
I'd like to make a motion that to amend this motion so that the dumpster on the original plan shall be moved to the interior of the property.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the location of the dumpster?
We have a Heather finger.
I'm sorry. Ms. Ireland, please.
Thank you, Mayor. We just received this site plan today, and I have not had an opportunity to circulate it to Public Works and Beaches Energy for their review, because it's not just the dumpsters, it's the generator and the transformers as well. So we would like to circulate that for their review and opinion on the relocation before it's made official, because your approval of this rezoning is the narrative and the site plan. So we just want to make sure the other departments are okay with it first.
I withdraw my motion.
Ms. Golding?
I'd like to make a motion that we amend the application to remove the exclusion for the 500-foot distance requirement in the conditional use for bars, lounges, nightclubs, and taverns.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Nichols?
I'd like to hold off on that one to the second reading personally, because I'd like to do some more research to see really what the distances will be from the other locations. And kind of just get a little bit better feel of if it's going to be interior and do a little more research. So I'm going to vote no on that right now, but I would potentially vote yes if it came back up.
Thank you. Any other comments on the proposed amendment regarding bars? Mr. Stokes?
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Givenau's explanation was long and a little tough for me to follow, being kind of late at night, because what is it, 10 o'clock, what I'm used to. So if the 500-foot thing passed, would the river and post scenario not be able to happen? Or also the hotel scenario not be able to happen?
No, Madam Mayor, no, under the first two scenarios, the waiver wouldn't be required because it wouldn't be a bar. It would be a bar as a part of a restaurant. So it would be a special, it would be under the SRX license. The way I understand the 500-foot limitation to apply is for quota licenses or the 4 COP licenses. And I think that's that's the potential that we're addressing through this conversation. Again, this bar is going to be around 1,000 square feet. It's going to be serving, the pool area. It'll be a place where the food comes from downstairs to upstairs. So it's not going to be, a bar, and certainly buying a 4 COP license for space that small certainly is not economical. However, we have to have bar service for the hotel. I mean, we won't be able to attract the type of hotel brand that we would want without having that lounge area or that bar area. So again, I'm planning for maybe a remote possibility, but it's one that we absolutely can't mess up, or we will be faced with a less than desirable operator. So I know it's a long explanation. I appreciate it this late hour, you guys spending time on it. We will, again, I understand the gravity of the issue. We'll work on it between now and the next reading, but right now, we would not be able to agree to take that language out tonight. But you know me, I'll go do my homework. If there's another way to solve it, I'll try to figure it out in the next 2 weeks.
Mr. Monk?
Thank you. I understand your explanation, I understand what you're trying to do, and I agree with what you're trying to do. However, we just let your other application go through because you're following the comp plan and the LDC, and I think I can't now vote to go against that when we had to, which is what most residents would want, not another bar within 500 feet, even if it's interior, third floor, away from everything, full service. Where we just voted for 415 apartments because it followed the LDC, and then to have the exception right afterwards, I can't support that.
Mr. Mason?
Sandy, what was that motion you made again?
The motion was to exclude was to remove the language that excludes the 500-foot requirement for bars.
Ms. Golden?
Just to clarify, Mr. Devenel, you could have a bar in the restaurant, correct?
Yes.
So it's not like you won't have a bar in the hotel?
That's a fair point. What we're really concerned about is whether or not, and again, we're trying to look forward based on the universe of property managers and hotel developers and operators of what they like and what they prefer sometimes is to have the hotel and the bar be all under one management, which would be separate then from the restaurant. And they, some don't want to get involved in the F&B. Others want all of it. Again, that you have a fair point. There will be a bar, but it'll be in a restaurant. It won't be, if we got to that third layer of analysis, we wouldn't have a bar on the third floor next to the pool, which, again, is, I guess I'm going to say wouldn't be the end of the world, but it wouldn't be, and wouldn't allow us to attract the type of operator we want to attract.
Mr. Mason, your light's on?
Yes. Obviously, you haven't found the operator for the restaurant and bar. When are you looking to?
We're interviewing folks right now, and so the bar part of the programming, mid-building near the pool, is something that's critical for everybody. But we haven't gotten to the minutia. We haven't picked an operator. We haven't gotten to the minutia of, what do you prefer, restaurant, bar, or just bar only? The other thing that's unique about this property is the number of residential units that are going to be owned as well. So that lounge area is a unique amenity as a selling point for this building. And that's another thing that we think is really special that we want to have included, to have that as an amenity for the residents.
You good? Mr. Jansen?
Yes, I just want to say that I concur with my colleague, Councilman Nichols. I think it might be a little premature, considering the fact that Ms. Ireland said that they just received the site plan today. There could be considerable changes that are having to be made to the site plan. So until I have some more information, I'm going to be voting no on this motion.
Mr. Nichols?
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry. It's definitely getting late. Pineapple is not happy. Sorry. I do have a lot of heartburn with the reduction of the 500 foot, but this is a very interesting scenario where the weight of getting the ideal and best hotel in there may outweigh that for me. So, like I said, I'm going to vote no on it, but it's when it comes back up, I'm definitely going to be looking at it hard.
Ms. Golding?
I'd just like to follow up to my colleague, Mr. Jansen's comment. The bar, my understanding is the bar is not tied to the site plan, is that correct?
You mean the interior bar? That's what I was suggesting is perhaps a way to address it, is to say that, to add some characteristics around when that 500-foot waiver might apply. So you could tie it to a location or a size. Again, I'm just making this up, that this limitation only applies to bars of 1,000 square feet or less that are located on a story above the ground or something like that, and that it is ancillary to hotel and condominium uses, so that it's clear that there's not going to be no building and you just throw up a 10,000 square foot bar. I think there's a way to write a condition around it to provide the comfort, but I definitely understand the discomfort with the concept.
Mr. Nichols?
Would a condition of a limited number of people within that also be acceptable?
Yeah, again, I
just don't want to see like a
I know
nightclub
in there. I mean,
That's why I said, limit it by square feet. Maybe, I mean, because of late hour.
Do some homework on that?
Yeah, what I was gonna say is, maybe we can, I mean, I guess, I really do wanna have a vote tonight, but I also don't wanna push this until whenever, and we can, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, when are the meetings that are left? We have one on the 21st, and then is there only one in December? So if we were to.
Oh, I'm sorry, just kidding.
There's two in December? The 5th and the 19th. Okay,
That's correct.
and there's no other items on the agenda right now? This is the last item today on the agenda?
Yes, oh, today.
Okay.
And just for everybody watching, it's not just daylight savings time that is messing us up here. We have been in meetings since 4 o'clock. Quite involved meetings, so, and Pineapple is Corey's dog, if you were wondering what he was talking about there. So, and I was gonna suggest too, no matter where we go with this, if we do vote on it tonight, that perhaps we do like we did with Adventure Landing, with the project, to have some proposed verbiage, especially after can we even review the site plan in 2 weeks? The new, okay, so maybe we come back with some language that planning staff has had a chance to review before we do that.
If I could, I just got some direction from my client, who unfortunately wasn't able to be here tonight, that why don't we do this, why don't we just defer the first reading until December 5th? And then we can, that'll give us a month to review the site plan. We'll do an exhaustive research on our options, which I know we've already done, but just to see if there's any other option on a way to deal with this. And then we'll come back. If we can't think of any way and we want to talk about a condition, then we'll work with Ms. Robinson and Director Ireland to come up with some language to limit it. It still may not satisfy everybody, but at least we can get on the same page in terms of the language. And we can bring that on December 5th, and as long as we can get done by the end of the year, or have the chance of getting done by the end of the year, then that would be okay. So what I would just represent, I think we have the ability under the code to ask for a deferral, so I'll just make it easy and say we'd like to ask for a deferral until December 5th for the first reading, and then the second reading will be on December 19th, and we'll bring back either a solution or a condition for folks to consider at that time.
Madam City Attorney, is that enough, or do we need to make a motion to postpone definitely?
Well, he's asked for a specific date, so we definitely will be.
I said postpone definitely.
Definitely.
So do we need to make that motion, or just, okay.
Based on his request.
Ms. Golding, would you like to withdraw your motion?
I will withdraw my motion, and I will make a motion to postpone definitely to the December 5th meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If anyone turns their light on. I'm just kidding. Any discussion? Ms. Dumont. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Dumont?
Yes.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, thank you. This meeting is adjourned.